Access granted. Oh yeah. What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Welcome to Toby's Tips and Tricks 2023. We are live. What's up, Rob? And this music makes me think of Mega Man X. What a great reference. Yeah. Good. That should get you in the mood for doing some 3D CAD. We should do a collaboration where we design all his weapons sometime. Robert G is here. What's up, Robert? Jed Hightower, superstar of the TooTallToby.com/leaderboard challenge. Jed Hightower, you definitely have the most submissions in February. I don't think anybody's taken that away from you this month, bro. Tambour Station here as well. What's up? We got Thermodynamics here. Greatest screen name ever. And Rich K is here. What is up? Bright and early, 4 a.m. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Guys, I am excited. Today we are going to try something. I guess you could say it's a little new. It's a little different. We are going to attempt to do what is essentially a digital 3D CAD users group. We've kind of done stuff like this before, but usually what we do is we do like a Model Monday Live type of thing, where we really focus on the idea of challenging the chat to create a 3D model, not so much on just like delivering tips and tricks. And really, I mean, I'll be honest, this is what I love doing. You know, this is something that I work really hard on. These presentations, I put them together. I got to deliver them year after year after year at the World Conference. If anybody is in the chat who has seen my presentations in the World Conference, say something. Let us know. Let me know if you've ever been at the World Conference and seeing me present. That was absolutely my forte. I felt very at home there and very thankful to be able to give out these great tips and tricks. And I would work really hard on these presentations and was able to deliver what I thought were some pretty darn good presentations. And unfortunately, not able to attend this year. And so I didn't get to deliver this year. And so I really wanted to put something together for you guys, but I want to do, more of these. So maybe this will become a monthly thing. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I mean, it's a cool thing. It's a fun environment. It's a chance for us to share these tips and tricks. And, certainly I'm going to get out on the road again and do some tips and tricks in person at users groups, but maybe we could start doing this every month. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe we could do something next month. This last Tuesday of the month seems like a good time. It fits really nicely into my schedule. So we'll see how it goes. Not committing to anything here, but just kind of speculating. Maybe we'll do some sheet metal or some surfacing or tips for sweeps. These are just presentations I know for sure that I have, ready to go. Little minor tweaks and they're ready to rock here for the new year. So maybe we can start doing something monthly. Let's see if there's support for this type of an idea. Let's see how it goes today. But just a little brainstorming to get the presentation started. I see Amos, a very swell idea in the chat, said, very much missed you this year at World. Yeah, I missed you as well, bro. Really wish I could have been there. And Chris says, saw you in 2019 and 2022. All right, good deal. Well, Chris, thank you so much. I guess it was probably actually the 2021 in person 2019, and then the digital one was 2021. 5 Lax is here in the chat. What's up, 5 Lax? Been waiting for a long time for this. And Brian Jackson is here too. What's up, Brian? Welcome. Toby Sensei, thank you. Appreciate that. You can just call me Sensei here. So let's get into it. Let's talk first of all, what can I do to support? Well, the best thing you can do to support is like, subscribe, comment, and share and reshare. So first of all, it looks like there are 30 people watching. We only have 10 likes, so let's see if we can adjust that. I'm going to go over to my monitoring computer here and hit that little thumbs up to like. Let's see if we can get those numbers to match up. That's always a good start. Subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. I'm on a rush now. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subs. So that's my goal, and I'm going for it. So if you could subscribe, that really helps. Comment after this thing is over. If you certainly comment in the chat that's like the coolest part, is interacting with each other. But when we get to the end of this thing, or if you're watching the recording, please go in and comment down below. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm. I see Alex is here in the chat. I want to make sure that I get his comment in here on the overlay here. What's up, Alex? Thanks for joining us, bro. And share and reshare. This is something else that's it's really important. It's super useful. Shout out to Jed. I saw Jed did a really nice share this week. I know a lot of people do shares, so I'm not trying to count you out, but I know Jed, you did a really nice write-up. Share and reshare. So go out on your social media and just, you know, take a screen capture of something we're doing here today. If you see me doing something cool, to grab a screen capture and just throw it on your social media and just say, hey, this guy's doing some cool stuff. He's giving out some really good tips and tricks. You know, try to get other people interested in the channel. If you don't have social media, you know, maybe if you just have like Facebook, put it on there. If you don't even have Facebook, maybe just like send it around in email. Or take a screen capture and print it out and hand it to people the next time you see them in person. You know, whatever you can do. These are great ways to help support the channel, to help grow the channel. And the bigger the channel gets, the more I can do with it. You know, really, that's what it comes down to. So the bigger the channel gets, the more likely it'll go on and on and on indefinitely, and we'll be able to keep helping each other. So these are some of the best things you can do to support. There are some other things you can do. I'll talk about them a little later. What's up, Mohammed? Welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And on that topic of support, I do want to give just a quick shout out here to the crew over at SolidBox. SolidBox has absolutely supported my channel for the past year. They really, when the channel was in kind of a nosedive, they stepped in and they were like, bro, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. This is good stuff. So I got to give a huge shout out to SolidBox. What SolidBox does is they really specialize in desktop and laptop hardware, computer hardware for CAD and CAM professionals. So if you go to their website, mysolidbox.com, and you check out the products page, you can figure out what computer will be right for you. If you're not sure, you can just contact the team. They'll help you figure out which computer is right for you. But beyond that, they actually in-house take those computers and they make some tweaks to them, both in Windows and also in the BIOS, to make sure that everything is running, you know, tip-top for a CAD and CAM professional. And the reason they're able to do this is because SolidBox is staffed by CAD and CAM professionals, so they really understand what to look for in the benchmarking and when things need to be tweaked. They really know what to do, so that they just ship that computer out to you, you unpack it, and boom, it's ready to go. It's ready to run your CAD or CAM software of choice. And I mentioned this at the beginning of this support section because SolidBox, you know, not only has supported this channel, but really has supported the user group network all around the country and all around the world. And this year at the World Conference, SolidBox won the SolidWorks Users Group Network Sponsor of the Year. So this is the second time they've won this. So SolidBox, you know, really gets out there, really helps you, helps the community. You know, they believe in what we're doing. They believe in sharing the good word and the tips and the tricks, and really ultimately helping you make your life a little bit easier by learning some of these tips and tricks. So, you know, they're out there supporting you. If you or if your company's ever at a point where you need to get some new hardware, get some new computers, maybe consider supporting SolidBox as well. Give them a call, give them a look up. And one of the best testimonials about SolidBox is that usually when they take on a customer, they become a customer for life, because SolidBox really takes care of their customers because they care about the community. And you can tell because of how they're winning this award, you know, year after year. So check out mysolidbox.com. They are awesome. Let's see here. Alex says, have you been using 3D Experience platform? No, that's a negative, Alex. That's going to be a big old negative there, bro. I am all about standalone SolidWorks. I really like the direction that SolidWorks goes in. Some of these other directions, honestly, I don't really know what people are thinking, but it is not, you know, I mean, you can see it. If you go and you look on the message boards, you can kind of see what the feedback is on that topic. So that's going to be a no, bro, but thanks for asking the question. Let's see here. Mauricio is here from Argentina. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you in here today. All right, let's get into it with a SolidWorks tips and tricks presentation. This is going to run for about 75 minutes. It's going to be in 4 parts, and there maybe will be a break in the middle. We'll see if we're going to take a break in the middle or not. We'll see how it goes. I think we might take a short break in the middle. This presentation I put together because on my YouTube channel, which you guys are all on right now, what I do are a lot of tips and tricks. What I do are a lot of practice models. What I do are a lot of Model Monday live presentations. And what I do are tournaments. So basically the theme of my channel is to help people understand how to navigate through the software a little bit faster, learn how some different tips and tricks work within the software. And when I run Model Monday Live, the challenges that I give to the chat are turn this 2D print into a 3D model and calculate the mass. And then what the chat does is they answer. They figure out how to turn that into a 3D model, and then they answer. And we can see here that different people in the chat are using different CAD systems. Like Airwick uses Onshape, Cam uses SolidWorks, Victor uses SolidWorks. So different people use different CAD systems, but ultimately their challenge is to create the mass. Unfortunately, I can't see what they're doing in this Model Monday Live challenge, and so I get really excited when tournament season comes around. It comes around once a year. It's going to happen this year in November, but what happens during the tournament is I show two people a 2D print, and I challenge those two people to create that model in 3D, and they actually do share their screens. And in watching some of these tournaments, what I recognized was that there was a lot of people who were making I'm not going to say the same mistakes, but they were kind of taking the long way around of doing very common tasks, whether they're in SolidWorks or in a different CAD system. It's a very common tasks that I would see over and over again, people maybe taking too long to accomplish. And so that's why I put together this presentation. And so I structured this by looking at some sketching shortcuts that we can all learn from, that we can start practicing to save time, some feature shortcuts that we can all practice to save time. Then a little bit of imported geometry. This is just kind of like an extra topic that I'm throwing in, kind of like a bonus topic. And then I finish up by talking about sketching once again. In fact, this presentation was originally called Toby's Sketching Tips and Tricks. I kind of just called it Tips and Tricks, just a little easier to recognize. But I would say the way that this presentation is structured is that part 1 and part 2 are really kind of fundamentals. These are going to be things that you're going to use every day over and over and over again, and they're really going to help you save time. And then part 3 and part 4, these are more nuanced things, more fringe cases that you might use once in a while, but when you do use them, you're really going to be thankful that you learned some of these techniques. You're really going to save a lot of time using these techniques. So that's the idea of the presentation. I'm going to get a little sip of my emergency, get my day going here right. If you guys have any questions along the way, please feel free to ask those questions. You can ask them directly in the chat, and I will be happy to answer them. We can deviate a little from this plan. It's no problem. But the goals of this presentation are that you will learn at least 3 new time-saving tips and tricks, that you will get some of your questions answered. So if you do have questions, please ask them, and I will do my best to answer them. And as you can see from Alex's question, I'll answer them as honestly as I can. And of course, have fun. That's the third goal in this presentation. Hopefully when you leave, you are smiling. While you're watching, you are smiling. We want to try to make this fun for everyone. I do want to talk about one in the chat. The idea of one in the chat is if you see something you like, you can just sit there and spam the 1 key, or you can hit it once and you press enter. Let's all try it now. If you guys are watching here in the live chat, put a 1 in the chat if you are alive, if you are watching. The idea is that this is kind of like clapping. This is kind of like what you would do if you were gonna applaud, if you were gonna say like, wow, that's really cool. In a live presentation, I can see people's faces. I can see when something really hits, when it's like, whoa, that I'm gonna use that all the time. So if you see something that you like during this presentation, put a 1 in the chat. That'll let me know, and it's kind of like you're applauding. So if you're really excited, you can spam the 1 key. And if you don't like it, well, you can thumbs down it, or you can put a frowny face. You can do something a little more creative, or you could just not say anything at all. That's fine too. But I'm hoping that we're going to see a lot of feedback. This really helps me, and this is pretty common in the world of live streaming. So this is a little trick you can use on other live streams if you're watching them. Alrighty, awesome. Let's go. Sketching. Let's talk about some sketching tips and tricks. Toby's Tips and Tricks 2023. And what I'm going to do throughout this presentation is I have this this print that came off of my beautiful 2D printer. So the same print like you guys are seeing here, I was able to pull this off of my 2D printer. And this is one of the challenges that we used during the tournament last year. And so as I go through the presentation today, I'm going to reference this print. If you want to, you could grab a screen capture of this. You could use Windows snipping tool, or you could grab a screen capture of this part, and you could just kind of keep it off on the side, and that way, as I'm going through and showing how I'm using some of this functionality, it might allow you to follow along with a little bit more. It's not required. It's not going to make or break the presentation or anything. It's just, if you wanted to, you can certainly grab a screen capture of this and then move it over to the side. So one of the first things that I noticed when I was watching people run the tournament is that beginning a sketch is often a time sink. And what I mean by that is, this is a mantra that I would always teach my students. You know, I've taught hundreds of professional training classes, and I would always teach them this 3-step mantra: select the plane, begin a sketch, orient your view. Select the plane, begin a sketch, orient your view. And it's so much that you often hear me saying it when I'm going through and doing my tutorial videos. Select the plane, begin a sketch, orient your view. This is a very fundamental mantra that you should learn. There are other ways that you could begin a sketch. You could, for example, click the extrude icon first. I think that's even like how they teach you in the built-in tutorials, but it's not a good flow. But you could select the extrude icon first, and then you could pick a plane, and then you could start sketching. But you don't want to do that. You want to select a plane, begin a sketch, orient your view. The thing about this workflow that I noticed during the tournament that I felt like people were maybe missing out on was the idea of actually clicking the sketch icon to begin your sketch. And you really don't need to do this. And instead, what you want to do is you want to get in the habit of working with the functionality that's in SolidWorks to begin a sketch. And so what I mean by that, and I'm going to flip over here to my keyboard and mouse cam so you can see what I'm doing with my hands here. And of course, in the middle there, a little reminder, if you want to get the softest t-shirt in the CAD game, be sure to check out TooTallToby.com/merch. These t-shirts are amazing. They are soft. I wear them every day because they are so soft and so comfortable. So feel free to check out TooTallToby.com/merch. You can pick up your own TooTallToby shirt. They are all purpose. You don't have to wear them to CAD conferences. You can just wear them every day. You can wear them to a baseball game. You can wear them anywhere. They are all purpose black t-shirts. So getting back to this topic of sketching and beginning a sketch, I'm going to start a new part. I'm looking at the title block here. This part is using 1060 aluminum alloy, so I'll pick that template. And then I'm going to go to select my plane, begin a sketch, and orient my view. Now, you notice that I was able to quickly get into sketch mode. And here's a little bonus tip. A lot of people don't actually know this, but whenever you see the red sketch origin, you are in sketch mode. If you see that red sketch origin, you're in sketch mode. You will only see that red origin when you're in sketch mode. It's a little something people maybe didn't know before, but it's just another indicator that you're in sketch mode. Otherwise, you don't see that origin. So select a plane, begin a sketch, orient the view. So what I did was I came over here, I selected the plane, but you notice that I did not go up to these toolbars up here. You don't have to go up here. You don't have to, get into this idea of like clicking on a different tab and clicking the toolbar or anything like that. Instead, what I did was I just clicked on the name of the plane and I got into sketch mode. Now, sometimes when you click on the name of the plane, instead of the fun toolbar showing up, you get this. Or maybe the toolbar shows up for a moment and then you get this. This is another kind of a bonus tip here, is try to get in the habit of not clicking on the word, the name of the plane or the feature, but instead clicking on the icon. If you click on the word, then the shortcut bar or the context toolbar will show up at first. But then if you click on that word again, you'll go into a rename function. But if you click on the icon itself, you'll never go into a rename function. And this works both in SolidWorks, but also in Windows. If you're clicking on folders or files in Windows, if you click on the name of the file and then click on it again, you go into rename. But if you click on the icon, then you will not go into a rename function. You'll be able to select that item. Let's see here. Adam in the chat says, will this be recorded? Yes, Adam, great question. My one is coming from good place. All right, awesome. Yeah, all good, bro. All good. You could speed up the timer on that one, Brian, to get back up to speed. All right, here we go. Let's get back to this. Okay. So the bonus tip there is you can click on the name of the feature. If you click on it again, you go into rename. A lot of times it's not what you want. A lot of times you do it inadvertently. Well, instead, get into the habit of clicking on the icon itself, and that way you won't inadvertently go into that rename. And that works not only in SolidWorks, but it works in all Windows-based programs. So really good shortcut to know about there. The other thing is, remember, select a plane, begin a sketch, orient your view. When you go to begin a sketch, just begin it right here. You don't need to go up to the toolbars to begin your sketch. So for this model, I would probably start sketching this on the front plane, and then I'm going to begin the line command, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to come up a little bit, and come over, and come up, and come over, and then come down at an angle. And then I'm going to go into features, extrude, and I'll change that to mid plane and make it the correct extrusion depth. I don't know what it is. Gives me something like this. Now I'm ready to create my second sketch, and so I'm going to select a plane or a planar face, and then I'm going to begin a sketch. And so once again, I don't need to go up to the toolbars. I can just select a plane or a planar face, begin a sketch, and then orient my view. Now the way that I'm orienting my view, if you look over here at my keyboard, is I'm holding Control and I'm pressing the number 8. And so when I hold Control and I press the number 8, you can see that that takes me into a normal to view looking down from the top. You'll notice here that if I do Control 1, Control 2, Control 3, 4, this is my front, top, side view. These are all my standard views in SolidWorks. So Control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then Control 8. If you have hands big enough, you can do it with one hand. Otherwise, you might need to use two hands to get through there. But again, good to know that your standard views are built right in, and very good to know that Control 8 is your shortcut for your normal view. So then from here, I might do something like this, create an arc here on the end of this part, and then maybe I would go into features, extrude cut, and I would make that through all both to kind of lop off the end of that part. So that's the idea of select a plane, begin a sketch, and orient your view. You want to remember that when you go into select a plane, begin a sketch, orient your view, that you don't want to use the actual sketch toolbar. You're wasting time clicking up there. Instead, what you want to do is you want to go into the name of the icon. Click on the icon, and then you'll get the little sketcher toolbar to show up. You also want to remember, as kind of a bonus tip, that you want to click on the name, the icon, not the name, and that way you'll get that little toolbar every time. That's like a little good bonus tip there. And then for orient your view, you can use Control plus the number 8 to get normal 2, and you can also use Control plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 for all of your standard views. Amos in the chat is saying, what? Fully defined every time? Don't worry, bro. We'll get there. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit as well. And Tom Dunn in the chat says, do you have auto orient your view turned on? Great question, Tom. And so what Tom is referring to here is that there is an option in the beginning of your sketch. When you go to begin a sketch in your system options under sketch, there is an option for rotate view normal to on sketch creation. And so if I flip back over to SolidWorks here, you can see that if I go to my options, sketch, this first option here says auto rotate view normal to on sketch creation and sketch edit. And so basically this saves you that extra step. When you go to your select a plane, begin a sketch, it automatically takes you normal to. And then you can create the geometry that you want to create. So we create our geometry here. Then we can go to our feature, extrude cut, and it actually takes you back to the orientation that you started in. So for example, let's say I'm sort of at an isometric view here, but not exactly isometric. I pick this face, begin a sketch. SolidWorks takes me normal 2. Then I create the geometry that I want to cut extrude. Then I go features, extruded cut. And watch this, SolidWorks is going to take me back to that orientation that I started in. So that could be kind of cool. You know, this is kind of just more of a nuanced preference thing. I personally spend a lot of time doing plastics design and doing lofting and sweeping. So I actually a lot of times need to be on an angle so I can pick up a pierce point for a guide curve. So a lot of times I prefer to have that turned off, but you can certainly have that turned on. That's a great question from Tom. And so that's the answer to that question. Yes, you can absolutely auto rotate your view normal to, and that could save you some time as well. And let's see here. And I like Richard says 111 plus an additional one for Tambour Station. Okay, good. How to fix that Adam says, how do I fix that? While I'm inputting value for dimension when entity is created, my mouse is sliding, value resets permanently. Yeah, we'll talk about that as well. Great question, Adam. We will get there in just a moment. Cool, so select plane, begin a sketch, orient your view. That is the way you want to create a new sketch, and you want to remember, don't use the icon up in the toolbar. That will be problematic. Brian says, enthusiastic 111 for not renaming. Yes, avoiding the rename is a pro move for sure. I think it was Joe Galliera who told me that, Flo Joe, old school. SolidWorks community member. So credit where credit is due. All right, so that gave us kind of the idea of starting this first model, maybe going through the first couple sketches in this model. I'm going to come back to this in just a couple of minutes, but let's talk next about the S key. The S key is the ultra power move in sketch mode. It's the ultimate sketch mode move. It's my absolute favorite shortcut. It's my favorite thing about SolidWorks all around. I'm excited to see that the S key also exists in some other CAD software. I might be talking about that a little later on this year. But the S key is absolutely a beast in the world of SolidWorks and definitely one to learn about. So what is the S key? In simplest terms, it is you press the letter S on your keyboard and this little menu shows up automatically. And the menu is based on what mode you are working in. So in other words, here I am looking at I'm at the feature level of SolidWorks. I'm not in Sketch, I'm not in Assembly, I'm not in a drawing, I'm in feature mode in a SolidWorks part. So when I press the letter S over here on my keyboard, right there, S, this little menu shows up that has some really useful tools for me when I'm working in feature mode. I can press fillet, for example. I can type in the radius of the fillet, and then I could pick this edge and pick this edge, and I could fillet off that geometry. Or I could maybe pick this face here and then press S and go into reference geometry plane, and I could create a new plane that's at a certain distance down from the top. That's pretty handy, just be able to quickly get in there and do that right from the S key. And when we get into sketch mode, we can use the S key as well, and we can see that the menu is different. Now it doesn't show me the feature fillet command. Now it shows me sketch line, sketch rectangle, all the common sketching tools. Well, for me, what I do with the S key, and I always do the same thing with the S key, I press the S key and I do a right mouse button here and I say customize. And what I do when I'm customizing the S key is I get in here first of all and I get rid of this icon and I get rid of this icon. And the reason I get rid of those two icons is because the line command is a flyout menu, line, center line, midpoint line. The rectangle is a flyout menu, rectangle, center, rectangle, 3-point rectangle, etc. I only ever use the first two in each of these menus. I only ever use line and center line. I only ever use rectangle, center, rectangle. Occasionally I use one of these other ones, but once you launch the command, you have access to all 5 of them anyway. So, you know, I don't really need to have all of those on the S key menu. So I do the S key right mouse button customize, and I take this line command and I drag it off, and I take this rectangle command and I drag it off, and then let's move over here. And then I go into my my menus here. Let me see if I can do this zoomed in a little bit just to make it a little easier for you guys to see. And from my menus here, I go down to the menu for sketch. So I go into these menus here, I go down to the menu for sketch, and then I take the line command off of my sketching toolbar and I drop it here. I take the rectangle and I drop it here. I take the center rectangle and I drop it here. And I take the center line and I drop it here. And that way, and I also do a little bit of resizing, that way, whenever I am working in SolidWorks, I don't have to worry about those flyout menus. I can just jump right into the line command and begin creating the geometry for this model. Or I could jump right into the rectangle command or the center rectangle command or whatever command it is that I need. The other thing that I can do with this S key is from the S key, I can right mouse button customize. And once I go into customize here, I can go to this flyout menu and choose features. And I can actually add the features commands to the S key. So when you first get started in SolidWorks, maybe when you first learn about the S key, you'll learn that you can press S key and you can exit the current sketch. And then you can press the S key again and you could jump into the extrude command. Well, that's pretty nice. It's a pretty nice little shortcutted workflow. But you can actually take that a step further and you can S key, right mouse button, customize. And then from the customize menu here, you can see that you can choose your features commands. And then you could add your feature commands right to the S key for sketch mode. So that when you're in sketch mode, you can press S and you can jump right into the extrude command. And there you go. Now you've got an extrusion coming right out of the sketch. Select a face, begin a sketch, orient the view, S key circle, S key extrude cut, rip that extrude cut through. That's a pretty fast way to get in there and start creating some geometry. So Absolutely, the S key is epic. So much so that I made a video about this. It's on my YouTube channel. It is the ultimate shortcut for power users. I am a certified expert in that picture, and I talk all about how to set up the S key start to finish. A lot more detail that I'm going to go into here just for sake of time, but the S key is epic and definitely a shortcut to learn how to use efficiently. Garrett, you made it. What's up, bro? Early in the morning for you. Amos says he's got the, let's see here. Amos says he likes the use of the, where was it up here? I just saw it. Of mouse gestures. I was looking at this earlier. Okay, cool. You guys can see my chat here. I lost, oh, here it is. I like mouse gestures for normal too. And let's see here. And then Adam says you can always use A key to switch between creating entities. That's good point too. We're gonna actually talk about that one in a little bit, Adam. I like it though. I love that we are all on the same page here. Like Tom said, you know, what about going normal too for the sketch? And it's like, oh yeah, I love that one too, and like I'm ready for that. So this is awesome. This is great feedback. It's letting me know that I structured this presentation in a good way, and that we are all on the same page here, kind of thinking through some of these questions, you know, anticipating some of these questions. So this is great. So let me go back to, let's go back to our SolidWorks view here. Let's just address the topic of mouse gestures real quick here. So I've been talking this whole time about, you know, select the face, begin a sketch, orient the view, S key to get into some really useful commands. Another thing that you can do is you can hold down the right mouse button. So here's the right mouse button here. You can hold it down and you can begin dragging. And when you hold down the right mouse button and begin dragging, whoops, I think I turned this off actually. There we go. When you hold down the right mouse button, you begin dragging, you get this kind of a wheel here on the screen. And this is very similar to the S key. So I could hold down the right mouse button, drag straight down and get into a rectangle command. And then I could hold down the right mouse button, drag straight up and get into the smart dimension command. And then I could hold down the right mouse button and drag over and get into the circle command. And then I could hold down the right mouse button, drag up and get into the smart dimension command. And once you learn where these different commands are, it becomes really easy to jump into the different commands. There I was able to jump into the extrude command from mouse gestures. So the way that you set up your mouse gestures is you right mouse button up here in one of the toolbar areas, and then you choose customize. And when you choose customize, there's a tab here for mouse gestures. Now you can see here that you have these wheels depending on what mode you're in. So a wheel for sketch mode, a wheel for drawing mode, a wheel for the different modes. And you can change these. You could just have two, just, you know, accept and decline, or create a dimension and exit the sketch. You can make it really simple. You could have 3, you could have 4, you could have 8, you could have 12. I like this one, 12. Yeah, that's what I want. I want 1,000,000 mouse gestures on mine. Mouse gestures absolutely work, and they are certainly a viable solution as well. It's just not my cup of tea personally. That's not to say it doesn't work, or that I have any problem with them, or that they will slow you down. They will almost certainly speed you up. It's just not my cup of tea personally, so I like to just come in here and uncheck mouse gestures, just turn it off. Mainly because when you make an assembly in SolidWorks, if you right mouse button and drag, that's the shortcut for rotate, to rotate a component. So, you know, that's what that is. Garrett Klein coming in with a super chat. Thanks, bro. Thanks a lot for the support. I appreciate that. Using the super chat is another great way to support the channel, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Omar saying, fun fact, actually worked on a G915 as a mechanical engineer. Too bad we had Creo instead of SolidWorks in Logitech. That's cool. You mean worked on the design of the mouse, or worked on the, is that what this mouse is? Is this a G? This is an M510. Oh, wait, is it the keyboard? You're gonna have to tell me, bro. I'm sorry. I just buy stuff that I think like looks cool and has a lot of functionality. So I bought this keyboard because it's got a ton of like customizable macro keys and lots of like cool functionality with the lighting. I actually thought it would look better as a keyboard cam. I think I need to adjust my lighting and contrast. The keyboard, of course. Man, I outed myself as a noob. Alrighty, so let's keep going here. The S key is epic. Be sure to check out that video. This is what I do with my S key. We talked about this a moment ago. I set it up so that I've got the 4 standalone icons, and I set it up so that I've got the feature boss extrude and feature cut extrude built right into the S key. That is going to be a huge time saver. All right, let's talk about auto dimension in sketch mode. I know there was a question that came in on this a little while ago from Adam. Adam's asking some excellent questions today. Auto dimension in sketch mode. So this is a system setting. You go into your system options, and from your system options, you go down to sketch, and then you're going to check both of these options. So system options, system options, go down to sketch, check both of these options. This is the enable on-screen numeric input and create dimension only when a value is entered. So if we go over to SolidWorks and we take a look at what this experience looks like in the actual software, what it looks like is, I'm going to start a new part here just to kind of clean up the screen a little. We go to our options, and in our options, we go to our sketch, and then we go down to these two options down here. So sketch, and then this guy and this guy. Enable on-screen numeric input, create a dimension only when a value is entered. And at that point moving forward, whenever we go to, let's say, front plane, begin a sketch, orient the view, and we jump into our line command, you can see here that we can single click, we can move over, and a little dimension shows up underneath the line that we created. Now, the trick to this, and I think this is going to answer Adam's question from earlier, because, you know, if I type in something here and then I move the mouse again, or if I try to type while I'm moving the mouse, you notice that, like, it doesn't really work, right? The trick to this is you have to let go of the mouse, and then you have to let go of the mouse, and then you move your hand over to the 10 key, and then you type in the dimension that you want, and you press enter, and that dimension lands. But in order to really appreciate that trick and to really have this functionality work the way you want, you have to realize that there's two different ways that you can sketch geometry in SolidWorks. You can single click, and you can move your mouse over, and you can single click again. I'm going to right mouse button here and say end chain. Or you can single click and you can click and drag, meaning click and you hold this button down and you can move your mouse. And then when you let go of your mouse button, then the line is created. Well, if you're using that method where you click and you hold the button down and you move over, it's going to be tough to enter in a value and get that value to stick, you know, and not end up bumping the mouse a little bit and getting that value to stick. And this is going to be the same thing for other types of entities too, like the circle command. You can see I can single click, move my mouse, I can let go of my mouse, and I can come over here and I can type in 50. Or I could click and drag, but when I do the click and drag method, it's going to be hard for me to get that dimension to work, because I'm going to accidentally move my. So the trick is you have to remember that you want to single click, move your mouse, let go of your mouse, move over to your 10 key, and then type in whatever you want that dimension to be. And that is the idea of auto dimensions. This is another huge time saver in SolidWorks. This will just crush it as far as SolidWorks goes. This will save you so much time. And so much so, I love this functionality so much that I have made a video dedicated to this topic as well. So you can get in there, you can look at those videos, the save time with this pro move and SolidWorks Auto Dimensions Part 2. This is a great way to really brush up on your game. But if we were going to be creating this model here, this sketch here for this model, what we would do is we would start out on the front plane. So select a plane, begin a sketch, orient the view. Select a plane, begin a sketch, orient the view. And then we would S key line. Then we would single click and we would move our mouse over a little bit. Then we would let go of the mouse and we would type in, let's see here, single click, move the mouse over, let go of the mouse, and we would type in the value for that distance. So it's 135, enter. And then we would move up a little bit here, and we would type in the value 12, enter. We'd move over this direction. I don't really know what this value is supposed to be yet, so I would just kind of drop that in there like so, drop this in here like so, come down like this, and then I would begin creating the final geometry to fully define the sketch. So this line here is supposed to be at an angle of 15, and this dimension here from the end of the part is supposed to be 25. And this dimension here from the bottom to the top is supposed to be 65. And now we can see that sketch is nice and fully defined. There's some other really good spots to use auto dimension. Like if I take this geometry S key extrude and I bring this out to a depth of, let's say, 85? And I'm gonna make that mid plane. And then I go to the top of this face here, select a face, begin a sketch, orient my view. Another place that's really useful is arcs. So when I go to create an arc here, like so here you can see I'm going to be creating an arc. Well, what I can do is I can let go of the mouse and I can come over and I can type in what that radius is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a radius of 80. And that way, all I need to do is add a couple of final constraints here and this thing will be fully defined. And then this is just kind of a cool shortcut. I did this a little earlier in the presentation. When you do an extrude cut of an open entity, you can actually rip it through kind of like a surface cut and just like rip off the end of that geometry. We got Othula. What do we got here? Othua Electric. What's up? Welcome. Says, hey, I'm new here. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We got Cloud saying, how do you save your live streams after they're done? They're just saved right on YouTube. You can just watch the YouTube recording. I have DDR turned on YouTube. So just as soon as it's over, you can watch it, or you can even roll back and watch it while we're presenting live here. And we have Free Cat Academy saying, thank you so much from Flowy. Oh, we got Flowy on here. What's up? What's up, bro? I did your challenge the other day with the 8-sided 30-degree cuts. I was going to post a video of it, but I ended up prepping for this thing a little bit too long. And we got Youssef. It's Youssef. Excuse me, Youssef. Welcome, welcome from Morocco. Thank you so much, Flowy, for the super chat. Very much appreciate it. Very, very much appreciate it. It goes a long way. So on this topic of auto dimensions, we can do it with arcs. We can also do it with the line arc line workflow. So if I single click, I move my mouse over in this direction, single click over in this direction. Let's say I single click. Now, I just single click the button here. You notice I just let go, single click the button. Now I'm not going to click anything, but I'm just going to move my mouse until it's over that end point. You can see that this brings me into an arc command. And once I get into this arc command, I can define the radius of this arc, 26 millimeters, and then I can single click, and then I can kind of close this thing off. And basically at this point, all I need to do is make this concentric to this per the drawing, concentric, and that sketch is fully defined. And there's a lot of applications of that kind of tombstone shape when you're learning how to use this auto dimension function. So for example, single click on the origin, move up 40 millimeters, enter, move away, not clicking anything, come back, touch the endpoint, move up and around, and then I can say that I want that to be 25, enter, okay, click here, move down, click here, move over here, and there we go. There's the end of that tombstone, nice and fully defined. Now, one little caveat to note here when you're working with auto dimension, normally when you want to switch between a line and an arc, what you would do is you would press the letter A. Well, the letter A isn't going to work here because if I press the letter A, SolidWorks thinks that I'm trying to enter a dimension for A, like whatever A is in dimensions. So normally, if you don't have auto dimension turned on, you can press A and that switches between a line and an arc. If you do have auto dimension turned on and you accidentally get into an arc command, you just want to remember to right click and then you can do switch to line. So you can switch back and forth through the right click menu there. I've done that plenty of times where I've accidentally gone into an arc command and I didn't mean to, and so you just press the letter A and then you press right mouse button and then you say switch back to line, and that gets you back in there. It's also, I guess, worth noting since we're talking about this, when you do that tangent arc function, so I'm not clicking anything, I just come back, hold my mouse over the endpoint, you can come off with an arc in 8 different directions. So normal tangency, positive, negative, or up or down, perpendicular tangency, which is super useful, like if you're gonna revolve a spherical revolve, this is how you get into it really quickly, and also reverse tangency. So when I'm manually filleting a shape that's like got weird curvature and I need to manually sketch a fillet to cut extrude, this is what I would use for that. So you can actually go in 8 different directions, and the way that this works is you just hold your mouse over that point, and then whichever direction you begin moving your mouse in, that's the direction that the tangency is going to be assigned to. I guess one more thing that's, just because we're talking about this topic, I'm curious if it'll even work here, but I know in 3D Sketch, you can also right mouse button on that tangency constraint, and you can do, I think it's in right mouse button, you can do like a reverse tangency. What if I click on it here, bring up its properties, tangent? Okay, yeah, there's not an option for reverse. In 3D Sketch, you can do that. You can right mouse button on the tangent. You can say like reverse the tangency and it goes the other way, which is pretty useful, but shooting from the hip a little bit there. One for the trick to enter the line length while creating it with the mouse. Yeah, that's auto dimension, Brian. That's awesome shortcut. Huge time saver. I have some videos on that in the Power Moves series. This is a playlist that I have called Power Moves. There's lots of like cool, like short, most of them are less than 5 minutes long, that explain to you a new tip that you can try throughout the day to save time. And there's definitely some overlap with that and this presentation here. Big Form AZ says, sweet, learn something new. All right, awesome. Are you in Arizona, Big Form? I used to live in Arizona and Mesa. So Higley and Baseline, that was my home base back in those days. All right, here we go. Line arc line workflow. Let's go, let's go, let's go. We already did it. With a bonus tip, we already did that too. When you're creating a line, what you do is you single click to start the line. You come back, you hold your mouse over the endpoint. I say touch the endpoint here, but you really just hold your mouse over it and then you auto switch into arc mode. The bonus tip there was recognizing that there are two different ways that you can create geometry in SolidWorks. You can do the click and drag method, or you can do the single click, move your mouse, single click again. For every sketch entity, it's the same functionality except for line. So if you do circle, single click, move, single click again, or click and drag, move, and let go, same results. Rectangle, single click, move, single click again, or click and drag, let go, same results. But with a line, it is a little different. With a line, if you single click, move your mouse, single click again, it creates a chain of entities. But if you, and then I double click usually to end it. But if you single click and drag, then that creates a single entity. This is good to know. There's some spots where it can be very useful to know that. One of the most common spots is if you create a rectangle, so single click, move over here, 30, enter, 75, enter. What you could then do is S key, go into the center line command, single click and drag from the origin to the midpoint of that rectangle, let go of your mouse. Now that just created one single entity, but it also opened up the sketch relationships over here on the left. So now you can make that vertical. So this is something that I use a lot when I'm trying to center geometry about other geometry. Like if I had, let's say I had two rectangles here, like so, and I want these two, I want this one to be centered above this one. What I could do is S key center line, midpoint to midpoint, then I let go, and then I come over here and click vertical, and now I know that this is going to stay centered above the other one. So it's good to know. There are a little bit more fringe cases, but knowing that click and drag creates one line, where click, click, click creates multiple lines. And that brings us to the end of section 1 in this presentation, the section on sketching. And so in sketching part 1, what did we learn about? Well, we learned about selecting a plane, begin to sketch, orient the view, a great mantra to memorize when you're first getting into SolidWorks. We learned about control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are ways that you can go to your standard views. We learned that when you click on the feature icon, not the name, that helps you to avoid doing a rename. We learned about the S key and the power of the S key. We learned about auto dimensions in sketch mode. We learned about the line arc line workflow. And we learned about a bonus tip. You can either click and drag, or you can click, drag, click, move, click to create one single entity versus creating a chain of entities with a line, and some other cool bonus stuff with centering that geometry. So I appreciate all of the chat, all of the feedback. I can tell already that we are heading in the right direction. If I was going to start to create this geometry here, if I was going to, go through kind of the workflow with some of the stuff that we learned so far, let's see if we can go a little faster. New part, choose the correct template. Having templates is a great way to save time. Select a plane, begin a sketch, orient the view, S key, line. I could single click, move my line over in this direction, let go of my mouse. I can make that 135, enter. I can move my mouse up here in the vertical direction. And oh, that was another little, you guys get a lot of bonuses today. If you notice over here in this side of my keyboard, I'm holding the control key, and then if you look at my mouse, I'm pressing straight down on the wheel. That's the shortcut for pan. So you notice that my sketch is kind of off the screen and difficult to work with. Well, I hold control and middle mouse button and drag, and that's the shortcut for pan. And look, I'm still in the sketch line command, nothing changed. So nice little shortcut there to keep moving through. Here's another cool shortcut. In this drawing, this dimension is supposed to be 25 from this end of the part. Well, I could type in 135 minus 25, enter. I can move my mouse up here. I can go to a height here of 65 minus 12, enter. I can move my mouse over here a little bit and then come straight down to the bottom. What I can do with these extra dimensions that are incorrect is I can hit escape. I can single click on this 53, and then I can grab here. This is what's called a dimension grip. This little endpoint of the dimension here, drag and drop. Look at that, now it's 65. That's what the customer wanted. I can take this 110 here. I can single click, I can grab this dimension grip over here, drag and drop onto this origin point here. Boom, 25, that's what the customer wanted. And then one final kind of cool little shortcut here is if I go into Smart Dimension, I can single click this vertical line here, and then I can single click the end point of the line, and that creates this little four-way arrow that I can click on to generate an angle dimension. It's like a magic dimension handle for when you're creating angles. And so that angle is supposed to be 15 degrees. And I didn't have to go in and create that little vertical line that I did the first time through. So just kind of a another little bonus shortcut there for everybody who's watching. S key extrude, and we're gonna extrude this out to a depth of 65, 85, enter, and then we're going to change that to mid plane. And once we change that to mid plane, we can hit the green check mark. What's up, Ryan M? How you doing? I don't know if I gave you a proper shout out yet. Welcome, welcome. Select the face, begin to sketch, orient the view, S key, 3-point arc, single click, single click. The radius of the arc is ready to be input. That is going to be a radius of 80, enter, escape. Pick one, hold control, pick the other, make those horizontal, pick one, hold control, pick the other, make those tangent. S key, extrude cut. This is going to be a through all in both directions. There we go. And select a face, begin a sketch, orient the view. S key, line, single click, move my mouse over, single click again, come back, hold my cursor over the endpoint, come around with the tangent arc, type in the radius there of 26, enter, click here, close off that sketch, and by simply making this sketch concentric here, the sketch is fully defined, and I'm ready to turn that into a boss extrude with a depth of 8 millimeters. So these are the types of things that you can really focus in on, that you can really start to learn how to hone. You start practicing these workflows over and over again, and you really find where you're saving time. These are things that we do all the time in SolidWorks. I see Brian in the chat says, I love the tangency arc / line tip. Yeah, I mean, this is something that you do all the time. Think about how often you switch from line to arc. And so if you can learn how to not only create that switch elegantly, but at the same time, almost immediately input the radius of the arc, you're going to save so much time. So these are good shortcuts here. Yeah, Adam's throwing out another good shortcut there. If you're ever in a spot where you need to define the length of an arc, you can create an arc. Let's say we needed to say we have like a certain amount of material to get from that corner to the like you're routing a cable here. You need to get from this corner exactly to the midpoint at the front of this arc. Well, what you could do is you could smart dimension, click the arc, click the end point of the arc, click the other end point of the arc, and now you're defining what's called the arc length, the chord length, or the arc length. I don't know if those are the same, actually. The arc length. So we can define the arc length here. Is the chord length the straight length between them, but this is the arc length, or are they the same? You guys can let me know in the chat. But if we make that, say, 125, then you can see that the radius gets more, you have more cable that you have to fit in there. If we make this 115, then actually you can't even get that short. If we make it 118, now you can see it's almost a straight line. We only have that much cable to get through there. So we'll make it 120, and that way we'll have a little bit of arc. It doesn't want to let me get back to what I was. Go. Yeah, good tip there, Adam. Appreciate that. All right, cool. Well, that's going to end our sketching part 1. We're going to move into features and conditions. I think this section is going to go a little faster, but I'm glad that we got to set the foundation properly to get into this next section. Features and conditions. And features and conditions is another topic that I talk a lot about in my videos on power moves. This is another spot where you can really save yourself a lot of time. So if we go in here to features and conditions, oh, we got to call back to an earlier question. Looks like, okay, Rich K, thank you, Rich. Rich is helping me out here. He's saying chord length is the straight line shortest distance. And Adam is saying how you create a sketch without changing view. Adam, you just need to go into your options here and under sketch, uncheck this first option here. So this first option here, auto rotate, view normal to sketch plane on sketch creation, just uncheck that. And that way the view won't change when you begin a sketch. I have used Rapid Sketch, but I don't use it. It's fine. Like if you can learn how to use it, it can actually be really powerful, but I just don't use it currently. Excellent questions. Rich K, thanks for the assist there. Chord length is the shortest distance. Arc length is the actual length of the cable. All right, so let's talk about features and conditions, and we're going to start out here by talking about the end condition for blind. And the shortcut here is simply to recognize that when you go into an extrude command, the depth of the extrusion begins as a highlighted field. And so what this means is whether you're doing a boss extrude, I'm going to use Control Z here for undo, whether you're using a boss extrude or using a cut extrude, when you're in sketch mode and you're ready to jump into extrude mode, you press the S key, you press extrude. This value over here is a highlighted field, and it's always good to look out for these things. The same kind of thing happens with a fillet command. When you begin a fillet, the radius of the fillet begins as a highlighted field. Well, if you know that before you jump into the command, then you can get yourself ready to type in the desired value for that boss extrude. So I know for a fact that the depth of that boss extrude is going to be highlighted, so I can do S key extrude, and then I can type in the depth, 18, enter. And if that's all I'm doing, if I'm just going up to that height, I can just press enter again, and I'm done with that command. So learning that the height of an extrusion or the depth of a cut extrusion begins highlighted is the first shortcut in this section, and it's incredibly valuable because if you're doing things like what I just did there, S key extrude 8, enter, enter. Now I'm going to make a hole here, select the face, begin a sketch, orient the view, wake up the center point here, sketch a hole here with a diameter of 30 millimeters, S key, extrude cut, 10, enter, enter. Boom, I'm ready to move on to the next feature. So this is really a great way to save time when you're working through SolidWorks. It's one of the first and the easiest ways is just realizing that anytime you go to create an extrusion, you get in there, you fully define your sketch, and then you S key extrude, type in the value of the extrusion, 60, enter, enter. Boom, you're done with that feature. Just a really excellent way to get in there and start saving some time in SolidWorks. The next end condition that I'm going to talk to you about is the idea of right mouse button navigation. And there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with right mouse button navigation. The ones that I use the most are through all from blind. And that's one that you're going to use a lot when you are working in a cut extrude. So if I pick this face, begin a sketch, orient my view, and I go to do a cut extrude, S key, extrude cut, right mouse button, through all. And after I choose through all here, you'll see that my mouse is going to change. So I right mouse button, I say through all. And now you'll notice the cursor of my mouse changes. It's saying if you right mouse button, that's the same as doing a cut extrude. So if I right mouse button here, that's the same as doing a cut extrude. And what that means is, you can see there's my cut extrude through all. What that means is I can select a face, begin a sketch, orient the view, create a circle here at 30 millimeters, S key extrude cut, right mouse button through all, right mouse button, and I'm ready to move on to the next feature. This is just such a great time saver to learn about. Select this face here, go to a cut extrude, extrude cut, right mouse button through all, right mouse button, boom, done with that feature, ready to move on. But there's some other good end conditions that are there. The reverse direction is another good one that I use a lot. So let's say I'm going to create a boss extrude coming off of this thing. So here we go. I'm going to create a boss extrude, S key, boss extrude. That's going to go out to a depth of 40, enter. Oh, but it's going the wrong direction. Well, I'm going to right mouse button, reverse direction, right mouse button, and now it's going in the desired direction. So reverse direction is another one that I use a lot. Mid plane is one that I use a lot. There's a lot of different options here, and okay, if you're ever doing a command and you miss the right mouse button equals okay, if you're like moving around the screen here, I'm doing a fillet, a feature fillet, and I'm moving around the screen. Well, a lot of times you can right mouse button and just choose okay from the right mouse button command. So these are the commands that I use very, very often from the right mouse button menu. Okay, reverse direction, through all, and mid plane. These are definitely commands that are worth getting used to in that right mouse button navigation. They will save you a ton of time. We got Victor K in the chat saying, joining late. Howdy, Toby. Yes, howdy, Victor K. Great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today. And we got Brian Jackson, who's a few minutes behind, giving us a 11111 for section 1. Thank you so much for that. Right mouse button end condition settings. Yes, very useful. A very swell idea. Appreciate that. Adam saying, do you know any way to switch between cut and extruded boss? There's only one way that I know to do that, Adam. Great question. I love all these questions that you're coming up with. Thank you so much for these questions. So let's take a look at this cut extrude here. So just roll back in the tree here. So you can see here's this cut extrude, and SolidWorks has a mode called Instant 3D. And what Instant 3D lets you do is click on a sketch or on a feature, and its dimensions will show up. Like here's the dimension for the radius of that sketch that I created, that cut extrude. If I single click on that dimension, then this dialog box shows up. Let me zoom in here so you guys can see what I'm doing. If I single click on that dimension, this dialog box shows up, and then if I type in a different value like 60, you can see that the geometry immediately updates. So if I click on that, I type in 80. That's a function of Instant 3D. And another function of Instant 3D is that you can single click on a feature and you can dynamically drag the feature to change the depth of the extrusion. In this case, I'm changing the depth of the extrusion with this icon here turned on. It's on your features toolbar, Instant 3D. Well, a little kind of like a hidden gem in that functionality is I can click here. This is the face of the cut extrude. So if you look at the tree here, you can see that what I'm clicking on here is the face of the cut extrude. So I can click here on the cut extrude, and then I can grab this arrow for the depth of the cut extrude, just like I did with the boss extrude, and I can change the depth of the cut extrude. Well, I can actually drag that up through, and you'll notice when I let it go, it changes in the tree to a boss extrude. So now it's a boss extrude. Well, I can click on the boss extrude. I can grab this little arrow here. I can drag it down into the geometry, and it changes it to a cut extrude. Little bit fringe here. You know, we're getting a little bit to the outskirts of you know, known functionality in SolidWorks. But if you guys like that, let me know in the chat, of course. I don't know that I've ever really used that in real functionality, but it is good to know that you can do it. It does kind of look cool. We used to use it in demos a lot because when we would demo the software, we would throw a radius on there, and we'd be like, hey, you guys want to see something really cool? Watch this. And now the radius goes the other way. So it could be something where, like, if your boss is looking over your shoulder and you're not really doing it, you're just wasting time, you could start doing this, and it'll make him think that you're doing something really cool. Whoops. Move confirmation. Yep, we'll keep that. Oh, I clicked the wrong arrow. There we go. So it makes it like, you know, you could say, oh yeah, I could do that. It's gonna take, this really is hard though. It takes me a long time. It makes it look like you do it. Or like if you have a nosy coworker who's looking over your shoulder, like, what's he doing over there? You could just do this and be like, oh man, this is so difficult. You don't have any idea the math I'm trying to solve here. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. All right, cool. Fillet to chamfer, another lesser known. Yep, I think that's a good one. I think I'm gonna save that one for another time. I don't think I created the right kind of fillet here, right? Chamfer type. Oh, I could. Okay, that is cool. It is the right kind. There you go. Fillet to chamfer. Edit feature. You got a chamfer. You want to make it into a fillet. You got a fillet. You want to make it into a chamfer. I guess it matters if you make it a chamfer first, right? Not all chamfers can become fillets, but all fillets. Well, not all fillets can become chamfers either. What's up, Tank? Welcome to the party, bro. Welcome, welcome. In right mouse button. Whoa. Okay, my mind just got blown. Garrett, thank you. In the right mouse button, you can convert fillet to chamfer. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I did not know that one. That's very cool. Next live may be on features. Yeah. Boom. Bonus points for Garrett. One in the chat for Garrett. Cool. All right. Well, let's talk some more about some end conditions. We talked about some cool stuff in the right mouse button menu. Reverse direction. We talked about that. The ability to reverse direction. Then you want to remember, the thing you want to remember about all this stuff is that you want to perform the command. So select this face, begin a sketch, orient my view, S key, rectangle, create a rectangle here like so, S key, extrude cut. And then after you perform the command, so I'm going to say this is going to go, let's say, through all, you want to remember that you right mouse button, reverse direction, and then immediately right mouse button again. That's where you really start to save the time, is when you remember to immediately right mouse button again. That's like the cool epic time saver that you get from this kind of stuff. I don't really have a name for that, so I just call it RMB, LMB, RMB. Because like you right mouse button, you left mouse button, you right mouse button again. RMB, LMB, RMB. Just rolls off the tongue. RMB, LMB, RMB. Right mouse button, left mouse button, right mouse button. Boom. Done. There's some other pretty cool end conditions that are built right into the software, like up to surface. If you want to do up to surface, what you can do is you can look at your end condition. You'll see that it's set to blind. You can double click on a face of the model, and that'll take you up to surface. Pretty cool little time saver that you can get into. So let's say I go to this face here, select a face, begin a sketch, orient the view, S key, create my geometry, create my little additional geometry up top here, S key, extrude. You can see that the extrusion is going in the incorrect direction, and you can see that the extrusion is, is also not going up to surface. We can see here it says blind. Well, if you look at my mouse, you can see on my mouse, if I double mouse button on this face, so I'm going to click on this face, check this out, the end condition changed to up to surface. And this also initiates one of those right mouse button equals OK. So if you double click, then right click, boom, extrusion up to surface, and you're done with that. Shout out to Brad in the chat. Thank you so much for the super chat, Brad. Thank you. Very much appreciate it. Goes a long way, and it does mean a lot to me. Thank you. And if we go here to our next little shortcut, up to vertex, it works very similar. The end condition starts out as blind, but you can see you can change it to up to vertex by doing a single click on the vertex of a model. And so what that means is if we're back here in SolidWorks and we want to create an extrusion that goes up to a vertex, so maybe you don't want it to go all the way up to a surface here, you don't want it to blend equal to the surface, but you want it to go up to a specific vertex. Well, what you could do is you could select your face, begin a sketch, orient the view, extrude. And then what you could do is you can single click on a vertex. So I'm going to single click here, and then I'm going to immediately right mouse button and boom, extrude cut up to vertex. So these are just epic power moves. They are extremely helpful. You can see here that we've got save time in SolidWorks with RMB. That's one of my power moves. Quickly create extrudes using these shortcuts. That's another one of my power moves. You can watch a little bit more in-depth video or a little review of what we went over here today in this presentation, but those are really good. And the final thing that I'll say is that you can use an open sketch as a through all both direction cut extrusion. So let's say you were creating a model like this and then you wanted to do a 3D print, but maybe this part's too big for your 3D printer. Well, what you could do is you could create a sketch that looks something like this. So maybe a sketch that comes over like so, and then comes down like this. And then you could do an extrude cut. So S key, extrude cut, and this is going to go through all in both directions. Now, if we look down on this from the top, you'll see that there is an arrow here. This arrow right here, a little hard to see, but this arrow right here is pointing in this direction, which means that this material is going to be removed from the model. So maybe you would do something like that. Then you would do File, Save As, STL, so that you could print that half of the model. And then you would do a right mouse button, Edit Feature, and then you could come over here and you could say Flip Side to Cut, and that's going to cut the other side of the model away. So anytime you have an open sketch in SolidWorks, you can do a through all, and that will give you your, anytime you have an open sketch, you can do a through all both directions, and that will give you essentially what's a surface cut in SolidWorks. And you use that option for flip side to cut to control which side you're going to be cutting away. Very useful when you need to cut your models in half. So if we go back to our PowerPoint here, you can see that that brings us to the end of our features and conditions. We talked about some really good stuff in that section. Talked about the end condition being blind, and you do enter, enter to finish that end condition. We talked about some right mouse button navigation. You can go through all, mid-plane, reverse direction. We talked about RMB, LMB, RMB. Very good little workflow to remember. Talked about the end condition of up to surface and the end condition of up to vertex for our cut extrudes. And we talked about the idea of using an open sketch as a through all surface cut. So if we were once again going to try to tackle this model here, what we would do is we would jump back into SolidWorks, we would go new. Now I'm going to try to do this at kind of like full speed. From plane, begin a sketch, orient our view, S key, line, single click, move our mouse over a little bit, type in our dimension, 135, enter, hold control and middle mouse button to pan. Come up here at a distance of 12, come over in this direction, 135 minus 25, come up in this direction, 65 minus 12, come over just a little bit, come down, hit escape. We want our design intent to be the same as the drawing, so we'll reassign these dimension grips to get our design intent. And we'll finish off here by going to a smart dimension that goes from the end point of this line, and that gives us that little magic dimension gripper. Now we're going to do extrude, and we remember from Toby's tips and tricks that the end depth is pre-highlighted. So before we touch anything or do anything else, we're going to type in 85, enter to update that preview. Then we're going to just move our mouse a little bit, right mouse button, mid plane, right mouse button again, RMB, LMB, RMB. Select a face, begin a sketch, orient the view, S key, arc. We're going to create a 3-point arc here, but before we finish the arc, we're going to let go of the mouse and type in the radius of that arc, the radius of 80. We're going to say that this point is horizontal to the origin. We're going to say that this arc is tangent to this end face here. And we're going to go into an extrude cut, and then right mouse button through all, both right mouse button again. Select a face, begin a sketch, orient the view. We're going to S key here. We're going to single click the line command, move out here to a certain distance, come back, touch the end point. We're going to wrap around here and type in the radius of 26. We're going to finish off by coming vertical to that end point and closing off this tombstone. Select this arc, hold control, select this arc, and make those concentric. Hit the green check mark. Oh, I'm sorry. Make those concentric. S key extrude cut. We're going to take that out to a height of 8. Enter, enter. There we go. Select a face, begin a sketch, orient the view. We're going to wake up the center point of that. Single click, move our mouse, let go of our mouse, make that 30. S key extrude cut. Type in the depth, 10. Enter, enter. Single click, begin a sketch, orient the view. S key, circle, wake up the center point here. You can see that we're going to give this thing a diameter of 15. Enter. S key extrude cut. Move our mouse a little, right mouse button through all, right mouse button, and then we'll finish off here, selecting this face, beginning a sketch, orienting the view, S key. We'll come down with a line to a depth of 20, enter, come back, touch the end point, come around with our arc with our radius of 15, enter, make sure that that is horizontal, come up here like so, close that thing off, and then all we need to do is make this vertical to the origin, and then we can do an extrude cut, S key extrude cut, double click this face, immediately, whoops, S key extrude cut, double click this face, immediately right click to do our up to surface cut extrude. And as a little bonus, we could maybe do S key fillet. And when we get into the fillet command, we can see here that our radius is 20, enter. So remember, the radius is automatically highlighted. Pick one edge, come over here, pick another edge. And with fillet, after you left click to pick an edge, so I'm left clicking to pick an edge, if you immediately right click, that finishes the fillet command. Like a little bonus, almost like a little hidden jam in there too. So these are our shortcuts that we just learned in action. I think you can see here that you can really start blasting through your models if you really start taking on this idea of learning some of these shortcuts. So I think at this point, I'm going to take a little short break. Before I launch into this break, I just want to say thank you all so much. I want to remind you that if you want to support this channel, support this live presentation, we talked about these 4 things earlier that you can do. You can give it a thumbs up, you can give it a subscribe, you can give it a comment, you can give it a share. So, you know, you could take a screen capture of what we're doing and you could go onto your social media network and you can share that with other people. But I also want to introduce the idea of a value for value proposition. And there's been some people in the chat who have already been doing this. And basically what it means is if you have been watching these tips today, and if you watch the rest of the presentation today, or if you're watching the recording and you're getting some value out of these shortcuts, figure out what you think that value is worth. Assign a financial value to that and maybe send that back to me. And you can do that by going to TooTallToby.com. There's a link right on the main page for support. You can use a credit card there or PayPal, or right here in the YouTube live stream. You can use a credit card and use what's called Super Chat, or you can use, if you're watching the recording, you can use a credit card and use what's called Super Thanks. And it's going to be different for everybody. It might be $5, it might be $50, it might be $500, it might be $1. You know, it might not be anything. Maybe you're not in a spot where you can give back any value, or maybe you just don't feel like you're getting any value. Either way, it's totally cool. It's totally understandable. Like, subscribe, comment, share. These things are all non-financially committal. But if you feel like you're getting some value out of this presentation, presentation and you want to send me some value back, it goes a long way towards helping keeping this channel running. Get to keep doing what we're doing here and sharing these tips and tricks. And so you can check out TooTallToby.com. There's a link right on the main page where if you're interested in this value for value proposition, you can hook me up. Also here on the super chat right in YouTube, and the super thanks for those of you that are watching the recording. So I'll let you guys think about that. We're going to take a short break here. Get yourself a t-shirt as well. Shout out to Rich K in the chat. Yep, that's a great reminder there. Get yourself a t-shirt as well. We're going to jump into a short break here, about 5 minutes, and then we are going to get going again in just about 5 minutes. I will see everybody in just a few. Perfect timing, right at the end of that song. How cool is that? Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We are back. Guys, thanks so much for all the feedback. I love seeing the chatter during the break there. I'm not sure what's going on with my chat overlays today. It's I say today, but really it's like feels like every stream I get into these weird hiccups. A couple questions came in that I didn't get a chance to answer earlier. Thank you guys so much for the questions. And, you know, I estimated we would go about 75 minutes today. Looks like we're going to run a little long, and that's okay. That's the cool thing about live streaming is that if we run long and if you can't attend, well, thank you for attending so far. And if you can stick around, that's great. And we'll, you know, of course, this thing is being recorded on YouTube, so you can immediately go back and watch it, or you can watch it later today for any of these remaining great tips and tricks. But some of the questions that came in that I just wanted to address real quick here. One of them was, what are some other good shortcuts to know about? Anti-Venom. What's up, Anti-Venom? Welcome to the party. Says F for fit. Yeah, that's a great one. If you ever lose your model, if your model goes flying off screen, you press F. When I used to teach, I used to say that's like, where the F did my part just go? So you just press the letter F, and that helps you get that part to come back onto the screen. A very good shortcut to know about. I use a lot of the arrow keys to navigate around, just to like shift the view a little bit. I think that's pretty useful. Control S for save. That's a really good one. Click in the feature tree and press F2 for rename. That's one that I use a lot of, so I can just like quickly go through and F2 to rename these. And Control S for save, and then Control Q and Control S. I know there was a question earlier, I think it came in from Adam also. Yeah, can you explain the differences between rebuild and force rebuild? How often does it need to be used? Yeah, so the difference is that when you have a feature, like let's say this feature here, right? This feature it's in the middle of parent-child relationship because it's got several features that are its parents. So the main boss extrude is its parent, and this cut extrude out here on the end is its parent because of the concentric relationship. And then it's got a couple of features that are its children. So the cut extrude and really the other cut extrude is like its grandchild. So it's got this parent-child relationship. So if I were to double click on this feature, Instant 3D not turned on, Instant 3D not turned on. If I were to double click on this feature and then double click on this 8 dimension and change it to a 10 dimension and just press enter, then in the tree here, you can see that this feature, Boss Extrude 2, has a rebuild flag in it. And if I press Control B, which is rebuild, Control B is your standard rebuild, then that's, I should probably put that in here. So that equals standard rebuild. Control B equals standard rebuild. That wasn't very useful, huh? Because you can't even see what I wrote there. Okay, and now I lost that other text too. Then what will happen is just that feature will rebuild and its children will rebuild. So for example, this fillet down here will not rebuild because it's not a child of that it's not a child of that feature. So the features that have been flagged in the tree or flagged internally by SolidWorks, the software, as needing a rebuild will be rebuilt when you press Control B. When you press Control Q, so if I do a Control B here, only those features rebuild. When you press Control Q, it's kind of like SolidWorks goes to the top of the tree and does a control, like a rebuild, and forces this feature to rebuild, and this feature, and this feature. Like it forces every feature in the tree to rebuild. It's kind of like going up to the top of the tree and rolling back down one feature at a time. So if you go to evaluate feature statistics or performance evaluation, this used to be called feature statistics, you can see how long each feature is taking to rebuild, and you can see the total rebuild time of the entire model. Well, if you do a Control Q, then you could expect it to basically take this amount of time, the total amount of time, the time for all features to rebuild, every single feature. Where if you do a Control B, it's only going to be this feature and its children. So it's going to be a shorter rebuild time. Now, how often does that actually come up? It only comes up when you have like a really complicated feature set. If you have like a very elaborate cut extrude features, and those features are not related to the boss extrude that you're rebuilding, like text, a lot of extruded text, that will really cause things to slow down, or like a crazy neural pattern or something like that, that'll cause things to slow down. You know, then it becomes important. Most people, most users, I bet most people in the chat would say, I just use Control Q all the time. like my workflow is I do Control Q. My workflow is I rename the tree. So base, feature, cut, arc cut in front, blah, blah, blah. Then I do a Control Q, and then I do a Control S for save. That's my workflow. That's how I go through and work through the command. So F2, Control Q, Control S. I just always do a Control Q. Control Q is just my rebuild. If anything looks out of line, if anything looks funky, if I double click here and I change this back to 8, enter, Control Q, keep moving forward. That's like my default, because my hand's already right here. It's a little awkward to go Control B and like kind of have to bend your hand in a weird way to get to Control B. So I just use Control Q for everything. It will come up. There will be times when, Control Q will crush you. The other thing that's good to know about is that if you go to General, there's this option here, Enable Freeze Bar. And what Freeze Bar does is it takes it gives you this bar up top here at the top of the tree and lets you roll it forward. And then everything that's above that bar, it doesn't rebuild, even if you do a Control Q. So if this feature here, this one here was like crazy text that takes forever to rebuild, then what you could do is you could take the freeze bar and you could roll it down, as long as it's an earlier feature in the tree. And then anytime you do Control Q, it's not going to rebuild those features anyway. So, that can help you too if you have like I've had that happen where I have like a real crazy swoopy lofty part with a lot of shell conditions that like take a long time to rebuild, and then later on I'm like adding little things to the end of the model, and then I just instinctively hit Control Q, and then like I have to wait forever for no reason. All this stuff is good. It doesn't need to be rebuilt, but I just hit Control Q by accident. Good questions, guys. Very good questions. I like these kinds of questions. All right. Cool. Let's see here. Control C to collapse the tree. Very helpful for large assemblies. Yep, that's good. 1 for F2 to rename. Nice. Control Q. F for fit to focus. Unless I'm working some crazy surfacing, then I just use feature freeze. Yep, exactly. Verification on rebuild is also important here, performance standpoint. Yeah, I used to have a power moves video on that. I purged a bunch of my old power moves videos, but I'll make another one on VOR and Control Q and kind of the differences. Yeah, and what's a few tenths of seconds exactly? Like, does it really matter that much? Most of the time, it doesn't matter. When it does, it's good to know some of this functionality. Cool. All right, well, let's get into it here. Next, we're going to talk about imported geometry. This is a little bit of a bolt-on section of this presentation. There's some really good stuff in here. I think it's good that it's coming after the break, and then we'll finish up by talking more about sketches in just a minute. I just want to mention this again. I know that when I said we were going to break, there were some people who jumped off. So just as a mention again, how can I support? The best way that you can support is to remember to like, subscribe, comment if you're watching the recording. Just throw a comment down below. Hey, that was really cool how you showed the instant 3D to change a boss to a cut extrude. And share. If you see something you like, get out on your social media networks, share this, try to get some other people back to the channel. These are the best ways. But if you are getting a lot of value out of this presentation, consider the value for value proposition. Think about how much value you're getting from these tips and tricks. Assign some kind of a financial number to it and send me that value back. You can do it over at TooTallToby.com using the support TooTallToby link. You can do it here during the live stream using the super chat function, which is down at the bottom. And you can also do it if you're watching the recording using the super thanks function. I know there's a couple people who already did this, so thank you guys so much. Really appreciate the value for value. It lets me know that I'm heading in the right direction, that I don't need to pivot or anything, and that we are all systems go for maybe doing this again next month. So thank you guys so much for the value for value. And if you're not in a position where, you can support financially, that's all good. You can still support by liking, subscribing, commenting, and especially sharing on your social networks. So with that, let's get into the next section of this presentation, imported geometry. And with imported geometry, the first thing I want to talk to you about is what's called 3D interconnect. 3D interconnect is a setting. It's found in your system options, and it's under import. And what 3D interconnect will do essentially is it will give you a container file when you go to open a non-SolidWorks file, an imported file. So in other words, let's say I was to go to this, door bracket, and I say open. With 3D interconnect turned on, which here in my options under import, you can see 3D interconnect is not turned on. Let me turn that on real quick. So options, import, enable 3D interconnect turned on. With 3D interconnect turned on, when I go to open that step file, what happens is the model is not actually opened, but instead is just placed in a container. And that container file recognizes the geometry that's derived from the step file. In other words, if you think about this in terms of the Parasolid kernel, or the idea of kernels, so like the shape manager, let's just call it. So SolidWorks naturally uses Parasolid. So if you open a step, the step must be converted. The shape manager that's used to define the geometry from the 3D geometry from the step file format must be converted to the Parasolid kernel. So what 3D interconnect does is it bypasses this rule. And instead of needing to convert this geometry, you don't need to convert it. And you can actually just open it directly in the step format, or read it directly from the step format directly in SolidWorks. The display that you'll get when you do this looks something like this. It may look a little bit unfamiliar. It's like the part file with a little green arrow sticking over to the left, or the assembly file with a little green arrow sticking over to the left. When you see that, that means that you've got 3D interconnect turned on, and it means that you're placing an external file source into a container, and then essentially you're viewing that container inside of the SolidWorks format. Now, this is really handy because it works not only with like step and IGES, but it also works with a lot of other different file format types. Like it works with Creo, it works with Inventor. You can bring in these file formats from other CAD systems. And there's some other kind of cool functionality that you can get, particularly with external references and referencing geometry from files that are derived from those other CAD systems. There's some pretty cool stuff that you can do with 3D interconnect. But from a practical point of view, what this means is that you're not sitting there waiting for every single step file to convert into the Parasolid format. And so, although there is a lot going on in the help file to talk about this, 3D interconnect replaces SolidWorks' current translation capabilities with new technology and workflows for working with third-party native CAD data in SolidWorks 2017. You can insert proprietary 3D CAD data directly into SolidWorks. I'm going to paraphrase here a little. Open proprietary 3D CAD format in SolidWorks with associated links. Update changes from the SolidWorks file. Break the link to the inserted file. Basically, what this means is that if you've got a massive step file and you go to open it in SolidWorks, it'll open way faster. And the reason why is because traditionally, every single file in that assembly, in that step file assembly, would need to convert into the Parasolid kernel. We need to convert into the SolidWorks format, and that conversion per file takes a long time, or potentially takes a long time. Well, when you're using 3D interconnect, you can bypass a lot of that. Each file does not need to convert, and the assembly can open much more quickly. In the case of this assembly here, there was about, I think it's about 1,000 different solid bodies, unique solid bodies. Opened in 22 seconds with 3D interconnect turned on, opened in 46 seconds with 3D interconnect not turned on. So you can go either way. You can open it with 3D interconnect turned on or not turned on. The problem that a lot of users run into, and the reason why I wanted to include this in this presentation, is they're not sure what to do with this kind of feedback. Like, what do I do with this when I see this thing? I just want to open it up and recognize the step. I just want to start working with the step file. How can I do that when I've got this container file here? And I think what it comes down to is there's some times when you want that option to be checked on, and there's sometimes when you don't. It is an option. So there's sometimes when you want 3D interconnect to be enabled, and there's sometimes when you don't. And just to keep this very straightforward and kind of keep it in a digestible amount of time, if you want to have the file open up in a container and get this result, you leave the option on. If you want it to be a traditional imported document, you leave the option off. Well, the general rules that I use is if you're working with a very large or very cumbersome imported 3D model, like an automobile or a complicated piece of equipment, you probably want 3D interconnect turned on, because your imported files are gonna open much more quickly in SolidWorks. You're not gonna have to sit there and wait for everything to convert into the SolidWorks format. It's also very useful when you're working with outside teams. If you're working with an outside team that's using Creo or an outside team that's using Inventor, it's very useful to allow their files to come in a container, because you can actually have that outside team update their files, and those changes will push through into your SolidWorks files, your external references. Like if you convert entities to make a lid for a part that they made, those changes will actually update when you get the new version of the file from that outside team. At least in theory. There's some hoops you have to jump through to make sure it works every time, but it does work. I have used it in an actual real world application, and it does work. So these are the reasons why you would want 3D interconnect turned on. On the other side, if you are importing a smaller data set, particularly when you need to make changes to it and you don't want to have to go through the process of unpacking those files, then maybe it's better to have 3D interconnect turned off and just work with that traditional imported geometry, where it opens up and you've got those imported features in the tree. So that's just kind of a quick view. If you want to save this slide, if you want to take a screen capture of this slide so you can remember these rules, this can be very helpful to understand. So just looking at some questions, Garrett's got a lot of experience with 3D interconnect. I'm not going to read his questions, but I encourage you to read through the chat. Anti-Venom says, let's see here. So can I use the file or just place it in my assembly, or is it just for preview? No, you can use it. It is solid geometry that you can use and you can reference. So you can mate it in your assembly. You can do a convert entities. You can still use it even if it's an imported container file. It's programming wizardry to a degree. It's very impressive programming that they kind of give you the best of both worlds. You get the file in its native container, so you don't have to wait for the import process, but you can still use it in assembly. You can still use it for a lot of SolidWorks functionality. So, yep, you can still use it. Yeah, very cool. All right, awesome. Great question, Anti-Venom. So 3D interconnect, this is where the option is. Again, the main reason I just wanted to show you guys this section of the presentation is so that you know what it looks like. When you get this, the little, either the part or the assembly with the green arrow versus not getting it. Now you have a better understanding of maybe why that happens. It happens because that option gets turned on. Continuing with this discussion of imported multi-bodies, I want to talk next about this idea of opening up an imported file. Maybe it's a step file or an IGES or maybe some other file format, and having it frustratingly not come in as an assembly. This happens from time to time. Maybe somebody else opened the file first and they did this or whatever. But instead of it coming in as an assembly, it comes in as a multi-body part. And so the question is, well, what can I do with it now? I really wanted that to be an assembly. How can I work with that file? And this is something that comes up a lot. It came up a lot when I was doing tech support, and I've noticed it a lot on the forums as well. What can I do with a file when it comes in as a non-SolidWorks assembly? It just comes in as a single part file. So I'm going to close this imported file that I just worked with, and I'm going to open up a different file that I've got here. The step version of this file that comes in as a single part with multiple bodies. So when it comes to this part file here, first of all, it says, do you want to proceed with feature recognition? Feature recognition is the idea of what's called FeatureWorks. And FeatureWorks is a really handy add-in if you learn how to use it, especially when you're working with geometry like this, like relatively prismatic geometry. It works great. It goes through, it fully defines your sketches from imported geometry. It gives you actual features instead of just a blob of geometry. So I've had a lot of luck with FeatureWorks. It only really works with prismatic geometry. So if you load in like a sneaker and you say recognize, like it's not going to recognize anything. But I do like FeatureWorks, but I'm not going to use it right now. Save that for a different presentation. So now the question is, well, what can we do with this thing? Well, the first thing we can do that's really helpful to know about is we can turn this thing into a pseudo assembly by using the weldments functionality in SolidWorks. And what I mean by that is we can go up here to our SolidWorks SolidWorks toolbar. We can right mouse button on one of these tabs. Raju has a very important question. I'm going to just pause this presentation for a second. Absolutely, the t-shirt is available worldwide. When you get in there and you go to order it, it'll ask you if you're stateside or if you are outside of the United States, and we will get it right over to you, Raju. And you are going to be the envy of your neighborhood. Everybody's going to see that and say, wow, that's an epic shirt. So great question. All right, so if we're looking at this this single part file, and we want to turn the single part file into a pseudo assembly, what we can do is we can come up here to our tabs. We can right mouse button on the tab, any one of these tabs, and we can choose to turn on the tab for weldments. And then once we turn on the tab for weldments, if we go to that tab, we can click this icon here, weldments. And when we click that icon, what we're gonna see is down here where it says solid bodies, this is gonna change. So we click weldments, and now you can see that instead of it saying solid bodies, it changed to cut list. And what's cool about a cut list is that it automatically groups components together that are identical. So you can see here that this component, which is like a rubber gasket, and this component here, which is a rubber gasket, they got grouped together automatically, which is pretty sweet. So I could take that cut list item name and I could rename that to rubber gasket, or I could even just call it gasket and then, you know, reformulate it to rubber. But in this case, it did actually pick up on the material. And then each of those items that's in the tree has if I go right mouse button here and go to properties, has a group of properties that can land in the bill of materials. So for example, material is here, quantity is here, and I'll call this one order number, and we'll call this 1, 2, 3. And so now if I were to create a drawing from this file, make drawing from part, we can see that even though this is a single body part, we can bring this single body part into a drawing. And then from the drawing, multi-body part, we can right mouse button and go to tables down at the bottom here, and we can choose weldment cut list from the tables. And so we can insert a weldment cut list here, and the weldment cut list is going to automatically pick up on our information from the model. So for example, if I go here to this column that says description and I change this to cut list item name, so here you can see I changed, instead of it being the default for the bill of materials, which is description, I changed it to cut list item name. Now you can see that it's picking up on that cut list item name of rubber gasket. And so if I were to return to the model and then just change this folder name here, so I'll call this hinge pin, and then return to the drawing, you can see that in the drawing, the bill of materials is automatically updating here. So when you've got a multi-body part, even though it is not a weldment, it was never a weldment. In fact, it's actually just an imported, this is just an imported part essentially. You can actually still work with it, turn it into what looks to be a bill of materials. You could assign some information to this, like I could go into annotations and auto balloon this thing, and then grab the balloons here from the title block or the bill of materials that we created. So you've got a lot of functionality, even though it's just a single part with multiple bodies. You could even, in this view, in this drawing here, you can even use a command called drawing model view. So it's the very first icon on the very first tab. And when you go to drawing model view, you could say, I want to create a drawing view from the bracket, from the door bracket. I know it says ASSM, but it's a single part file. And then when you go next here, you could say, I don't want every single body that's part of that multi-body part. I just want one body as part of this drawing view. So maybe I go to sheet 2 and then I do model view and then I say select bodies, and then I could pick just this solid body here and hit the green check mark and come back into my drawing. And now you can see that I can create drawing views of just that solid body. So really cool stuff that we've got here. When you're working with a multi-body design, you do have the ability to do a lot of cool stuff, even though it's not an assembly. You can really get away with a lot, and you don't have to panic. The main reason I wanted to include this in the presentation is because I know a lot of users get into the spot where it comes in as a multi-body import, and then they're like, well, what am I supposed to do now? I had one user, I remember one user who went through and deleted all the other bodies so that they could just work with the one single body. So they deleted these bodies here, delete these bodies, delete this body, delete this body, delete these bodies, and then file save as, and then save that as a standalone part, and then you can just work on that part. You know, that's a lot of extra work that you need to do that you can definitely get around by learning a little bit about how to work with multi-body design. And I think that hopefully the biggest lesson that you take away from this is that even though this is not a weldment, you can make it into a quote unquote weldment. And you can do that with any file that you create. So let's say I create, select a plane, begin a sketch, orient the view, and I create a part here that's 100 by 150, S key extrude, turn that into a 40 millimeter high extrusion, S key fillet, and I put a 20 millimeter fillet on each of the 4 corners. And then shell, so features shell. And I shell that out so that that's the lower part of this box. And then select this face, begin a sketch, orient the view, convert entities, S key extrude, and I'll bring that up to a height of 15 millimeters. And I'll say, don't merge the results. So now I'm gonna have a multi-body box base and a box lid. Don't merge the results. I hit the green check mark. Well, now at this point, what I could do is I could come up here to weldments and just click this little button that says weldments. And this solid bodies folder is gonna change to a weldments folder, a cut list folder. And now I can right mouse button, update automatically. And now I've got these 2 cut list items. This will be box lid, this will be box base. And I'm ready to start creating a drawing of this assembly, even though it's a single body part. Can you unweldment a part? Robert G asking, can you unweldment a part? Let's try it. So if I delete this feature, yes, you can. Great question. I wasn't sure. But I approached it with confidence, and a lot of times that's all it takes. Great question. Cool. So this is a single part that we have here that has 7 different solid bodies, and we were able to work with that multiple bodies and create a weldment cut list. We use this icon here that creates this feature in the tree, and it creates this cut list folder. And once we have that cut list folder, we're good to go. You know, we can go into a drawing, we can create multiple views, we can create those, that bill of materials type of thing, include all of the metadata that you would normally have if you had a traditional assembly. Really, really good stuff there. We can also take just one, you know, I mentioned before, what about if you just need to work with one of those solid bodies? Well, we can also take just one of those solid bodies and kick it off into its own part. So when you've gotten a multi-body part, a part that's got multiple solid bodies on it, you can right mouse button on any one of those parts and you can choose insert into new part. So I could go here to this pseudo assembly and I could pick just one of these parts. So I'll pick this part here, cut list item 7, and I'll do a right mouse button here and I'm gonna say insert into new part. And now what I'm able to do is take that single body out of that multi-body and insert it into a new part file for me to work with. So when you've got a single part, you know, a multi-body part and you just need one single body, that's how you do it. You right mouse button, you say insert into new part. Now these are related to one another. If I were to go to the master file here and create a change, let's say I take this and do an extrude cut, like so, we're gonna see that change propagate downstream into this part here. And you can always tell when your parts have got a relationship like that if they've got this little dash sign and then greater than sign. That's the indication, this little sign here. That means that the part has an external relationship. It means if you change the parent, it will change the child, but it doesn't go the other way. That relationship only goes in one direction. So it goes downstream. What's up, Samuel? Welcome to the party. Great to see you in here. I could probably put together some tips and tricks for some design table stuff. Yeah, we could maybe do that at some point in the future. For sure. So now we are looking at the, now we're looking at this, you know, this multi-body part. We were able to do a right mouse button, insert into new part. Now we've got this one single part file, but when we look at the tree, we see there's nothing in the tree to work with. So what exactly can we do with this multi-body part? Well, I'm sorry, with this imported part. It's an imported part. It's a part that doesn't have any features in the tree. What exactly can we do? Well, this is one of my favorite parts of the presentation because even though there are no real features in this imported document, we can still do a lot with this part. And the first thing I'm going to show you is insert face delete, one of my favorite commands in SolidWorks. It's so powerful on so many fronts. But in the case of an imported model, like Anti-Venom said, he works with a lot of imported geometry. You know, he's saying, is there anything that you can do with that imported geometry to, you know, to help me out? Are there any shortcuts you can show me? Well, one thing that I can show you is that whenever you've got imported geometry, what you're able to do is what you're able to do is you're able to actually eliminate features that came in from that imported geometry. So when you've got a model that doesn't have any features in the tree, like this model here, how do we get rid of this hole? In the old days, what I would do is I would select this face, begin a sketch, and then I would create maybe a circle like this, and then I would do an extrude, and I would double click on this face, and then I would right mouse button, and there we go. We got rid of that hole. That worked great, right? Well, you don't need to do that. There's a much easier way to do it, and that way is insert, face, delete. Insert, face, delete. And when we choose insert face delete, there's these three options over here: delete, delete and patch, delete and fill. Well, we're just going to focus on this one today because this is the only one you really need: delete and patch. And so when we do delete and patch, what SolidWorks does is really a surfacing untrim command, but you don't have to worry about that. All you have to worry about is, boom, that hole is gone. So insert face delete, a super powerful command in SolidWorks. Insert face delete. Get rid of that hole. What else can we do with insert face delete? We could get rid of these fillets. This is something that's very, very helpful. You know, the customer gave me this model and gave it to me with a radius here. I'm going to click on this face, and then I'm going to look down here in the status bar. This is another good shortcut to know about. I'm going to look down here in the status bar. So I clicked on the radius of this model, the radius face here. And then when I went down to the status bar, I can see what that radius is just by looking at the status bar. It's 1.52. Well, we don't have a cutter in-house that'll do 1.52. The smallest we get is 3 millimeters. So we need to change this fillet to a 3 millimeter fillet. Well, what we could do is we could go insert, face, delete, and we could delete these faces here. And then we could do S key fillet and choose a 3 millimeter fillet because that's the tool that we have in-house. And boom, we're good. The machinists are happy. For once. Shout out to all my machinist friends out there. Insert, face, delete, and we can go delete, delete, delete. S key, fillet, and we can fill it right here. Actually, I don't want that other face. S key, fillet. Get this guy here. Oh, I wanted it to stop at that spot. All right. Might have to break up that face a little bit to get that to work the way I want it to work. Yes, make them happy. Exactly. That's the trick to having a successful career. Keep the machinists happy, and they will make you look very good. Victor Cases went to a presentation on FutureWorks a few months ago. Biggest mind blown in a while. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Like to use the command search in the S key for getting the commands that aren't easy to find. Yeah, that's good too. You can search for commands up here. That's a good tip. All right, this is good. So delete face is very good to know about. It's a great way to get in there and make some changes to your models. What else can we do with delete face? We could even delete an entire gap. So this entire hinge here needs to maybe be extended across. Well, what we could do is we could use delete face to facilitate that. We could go insert, face, delete. You know, I'm using this so much. I'm going to do an S key. I'm going to right mouse button and go to customize. And then I'm going to go to the command, the surfacing command. I think it's in surfacing. Is it in features? Wait. I can never remember if this one's a features command or a surfacing command. Looks like move face is a features command, and delete face is a there it is, delete face. It is a surfacing command. So I'm going to add delete face to the S key so that I can just press S key, delete face, and then I'll pick this face here, and this little fillet here, and this face here, and this little fillet here, and this face here, and cannot be patched due to geometry condition. Okay. It's probably this guy here that's being problematic. That fillet that extra fillet that I made. So let's go before that. And let's just use this one single feature here to delete these. And I'm just using a right mouse button to finish there. So we'll do delete face, and I'll do a right mouse button, select tangency. It's another good shortcut. There we go. And then right mouse button again. So for that one, it was S key, delete face, right mouse button, select tangency, immediately right mouse button, boom, ready to move on with that design. So the delete face command is awesome. I could just go through and use this all day, but there's some other really cool stuff that we can use as well when it comes to the imported geometry scenario. And in the case of this model here, you can see that we've got these 2 holes that need to be relocated. This is something that comes up all the time if you're importing sheet metal or importing machined parts. Well, what we could do is we could use the command insert face move, and we can actually move these faces pretty quickly, move the entire group of faces. So instead of deleting that hole and having to recreate it, we could go here into our SolidWorks environment. Here we are back at the beginning with no features, and we could use the command insert face move. So instead of insert face delete, we're going to do insert face move. And then when we go to move, we can use this translate option that gives us a little triad here. We can move this down in this direction, and we can say that hole needs to move by 10 millimeters. So I need to move that hole in by 10 millimeters, enter, enter. And then I'm going to use the command insert face move. And I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to grab this triad here and move over in this direction by positive 10 millimeters. So insert face move is another really cool command that you can use. In this case, what I was using it for was to relocate these holes. But another way that we could use this is we could do insert face move, and I could use what's called offset. So instead of translate up top here, there's some different options: offset, translate, rotate. So I'm going to use offset here, and I'm going to make this diameter a little smaller. Right, we've all been in that spot where you import some geometry and the hole needs to be a little smaller or a little larger. Well, you could use the command insert face move to make that hole just a little bit smaller. Now you got a shoulder bolt, or maybe this one's going to be tapped. So you can make that a little bit smaller. Even though you don't have any features in the tree, you can just use the insert face move, insert face delete commands to really set this thing up for success. So we made that hole a little bit smaller or larger. We could make the gap a little bit larger or smaller using insert face move. With this one, you might end up having geometry that's too complicated. So if I did insert face move and I click on this face here and I do offset and I don't see a preview, well, it might be an indication that the geometry is too complicated. There I see a preview in that direction, but I need to go the other direction. So I say flip direction, and let's see what happens. Yeah, it looks okay. I don't know, that's a little bit weird there, that face. So maybe what I'll do is before that move face command, I'll do a insert face delete and delete this area where things are a little bit complicated. And then when I go to do my move face, just get rid of that extra face. So insert face move, there I'm using an offset command to move that face. So there's lots of cool stuff that you can do, even though this geometry is, it's just imported geometry that doesn't have a feature tree. There's lots of cool stuff that you can do. Brad's given a great tip here. Edit the tabs in your command manager to do the job you need to do. You can even make a new tab that's a custom tab. So you could say tab here. Let's see, how do we make a new one? Oh, here it is. So you do customize, and then it shows up over here on the right. You can make a new tab that could be like Toby's custom, secret weapons, and you can put all the tools you use most commonly on there. Delete faces. Andy Venom is saying delete face is very good in surfacing cleanup as well. Yep. And one more to show you here. If I wanted to make this whole thing a little bit wider, I could use the command insert face move, and I'll do a translate this time, and I can window select all these faces here. And then I could do a translate and actually move this over. And you can see that we can actually make the whole part wider, even though it's an imported model with no history. Maybe it has history. Maybe it's just easier to do it this way. These are all really good shortcuts to learn about in the world of imported geometry. So we can make that gap wider, make that hole larger, make the gap wider. We could move that entire face over. All kinds of cool stuff that we can do when it comes to importing geometry. So that's the end of that section of the presentation, the imported geometry section. We talked about 3D interconnect. We talked about using weldment and multi-body parts. We talked about insert body into new part. We talked about insert face delete. And we finished off by talking about insert face move. Now, when I'm giving these presentations, I like to let the presentations breathe. I like to answer a lot of questions along the way. I know that we've been going here for now almost 2 hours, believe it or not. This is pretty long, and I don't want to, hit the point of diminishing returns. So I think for this final section, I'm just going to kind of give you guys the cliff notes. We'll talk about these things at kind of a high level. I'll demonstrate each of the things, and then if you have any other questions, I can answer them at the end, and we can get into some specific examples. Little coffee to get me going here. Robert G says +1 for the insert face commands. Thank you very much. Thank you. There was one question that came in that I wanted to answer. Let me see if I can find this question real quick here. It was right around when the unwellment. Can you say? Oh, here it is. Rich K, can you save the multi-body as an assembly? I want to make sure I answer that question. That's a great question. And the answer is yeah. There's a command, insert feature, save bodies. So you can definitely do that here in the multi-body. You can see I'm looking at this multi-body part here. And I'm going to go to the command insert features save bodies, and that'll let you take that multi-body and save each part off as its own standalone. And then right below that, you've got create assembly. That'll do the same thing. It'll take each multi-body and save it off as its own standalone, and then it'll bring them all back together and turn it into an assembly all in one step. So great question there. Can you save multi-body as an assembly? Yes, you can. Yep. You can batch out all the bodies, save them all out at once, or you can do turn into an assembly all at once as well. Amos is saying you're rocking it, Toby. All right, thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Cool. Victor K, thank you so much. +1 for the long live stream. We are going into marathon mode here, so thank you so much, Victor K. Really appreciate that super chat, letting me know that we're heading in the right direction here. Thank you. All right, let's talk about some other cool sketching stuff. A little bit more fringe, but stuff that I think that you guys will definitely dig. If you've hung with me for this full 2 hours, you're going to definitely like this last section. So sketching part 2, let's talk about the trim command. The power trim command in SolidWorks is epic. It has lots of great functionality right from the jump, and then it has some kind of cool hidden functionality that not everybody knows about. So let's take a look here. We're going to create some lines like so. We're going to create a couple of crossing over lines like so. We're gonna press the S key here, and we're gonna jump into power trim, or really trim entities. You can see that trim entities has these 5 different methods that you can use. Power trim is the one that we want to use. Power trim is the only one that we really need to use. The way power trim works is that you begin dragging, and as you're dragging through here, you can see that anything that you drag through, you'll trim. Whoops. I didn't mean to trim that last one. Well, what you can see is, actually, let me just Control Z. So I didn't mean to grab that last one, so I'm gonna Control Z to undo. That undid everything. So I'm gonna S key here, I'm gonna power trim, I'm gonna begin dragging, and then as I drag through here, and I start dragging through like so, and whoops, I got the wrong one. Well, if you continue holding the button down, so I never let go of the button, you can see that I can touch this little red square, and that lets me backtrack on the power trim. So that's kind of cool. You can backtrack on the power trim. You don't have to, if you went the wrong way, you can just back up a little bit if you went too far. There you go, power trim. Another thing that we can do with power trim is, hold on a second, guys. Let me just set my phone to DND. It keeps beeping. I've never been this popular. So another thing that we can do is we can when we're using power trim doubles as an extend command. So you don't need to trim and extend as 2 different commands. You just grab the line here, begin dragging, that lets you extend it, or drag it up to another entity, and that will extend it and add the coincident relationship between the two. If that entity is not currently touching, you can begin dragging. So I'm holding down the mouse here, begin dragging, hold your mouse over the other entity, let go of your mouse, and then single click again on that other entity, and that will extend it and give it the coincident relationship. So if this line moves, they move together. So trim can be used as trim, but it can also be used as an extend. So a lot of times I'll do this workflow. I will begin power trim, drag this over like so, let it go, and then drag in the background like so, and that gives me a nice closed corner. So power trim is a great little shortcut to know about, and to kind of learn some of the ins and outs of power trim can do a lot of really cool stuff. One thing that a lot of people don't know about when it comes to power trim is you've got this option down here for keep trimmed entities as construction geometry. So I could say power trim, keep trimmed entities as construction geometry, and I can rip through this thing, and anything that I trim through becomes for construction. So if I created the geometry at first, but I want to leave it behind because it's referencing something downstream, but I want to turn it into for construction, boom, that's a really good, easy way to do that. And another spot that you can do that on is if you create automated geometry like a rectangle, you could jump into power trim, and then you could trim these 2 entities, and now that's just like a different way of turning those entities into for construction. So, yep, keeping the geometry for construction is a great way to not break relationships downstream. Exactly. You got it exactly, Victor. And then if I had something like this, I could use power trim and not keep that for construction. And then I could trim off these entities like so. Boom, we're ready to keep going on with our design. So you can backtrack on a power trim. You can use trim to extend. You can convert trimmed geometry into construction geometry. And then there is the shift with power trim move, which it doesn't really come up that much, but it's kind of a combination of this idea of you can extend your geometry. So if I go S key and then I go into power trim, and then I hold the shift key down, when I click on this entity, it extends to the nearest entity that's on the outside. So then if I go down this side, that extends as well. So you can hold shift and use shift with power trim. You know, like I said, this isn't one that you're going to use every day, but there might come up. This is one of these things where if it does come up, it'll probably be in one of these spots where you need to extend like 50 entities. And so then you're going to be happy that you know about that shift with power trim shortcut. All right, next let's talk about convert entities. One of the biggest things that I try to remind people about convert entities is that you want to convert the entire face when you're working with convert entities. And so what I mean by that is if I have a model like this, and I go to this face here, and I begin a sketch, and I pick this edge, and I hold control and pick this edge, 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 and I do a convert entities, then I go to the extrude command, and I extrude that out with a thin feature of, say, 2 millimeters. Whoops, yeah, I didn't want to cap it. So I extrude that out with a depth of 2 millimeters, wall thickness of 2 millimeters. That gives me this geometry. So in that example, when I did the convert entities, I did edge, 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 edge. Now I'm going to roll back in the tree, and I'm going to select this slot sketch, S key extrude cut, right mouse button through all, right mouse button. And then I'm going to roll forward, and we can see in the tree that the extrude thin has errored, and we can see in the graphics area that it doesn't look right. Or, I don't know, maybe it does look right. I don't know, that's the result that I get. Let's say we Control Z for undo, Control Z for undo. We roll forward, we edit that sketch. I'm gonna Control A to select all and press delete. And then I'm gonna pick this face and then pick convert entities. Now I'm gonna exit the sketch. I'm gonna roll back. I'm gonna take this slot sketch, do an extrude cut, rip that extrude cut through the bottom, and I'm gonna roll forward. And now you see that the convert entities did update correctly. So when you do a convert entities and you pick a face, what SolidWorks is doing is calculating the boundary of that face, regardless of how many edges there are. And then it will dynamically update when that boundary dynamically updates in flow. And so if you pick the edges, you don't get that. You're getting the edge ID, and you're using the edge ID to drive the convert entities. And so long story short, it's better to use the entire face rather than the individual edges. Now, what if, Control Z, what if you didn't want the entire face? Like, what if you only wanted certain edges of the face? And you guys probably already know what the answer is to this because we just talked about it, right? But what if you don't want this whole thing? You don't want these edges here. You just want, you know, the front two these front two edges of the model to be part of that converted entity. Well, what you could do in that case is you could go pick the face, convert entities, trim entities, keep trim geometry for construction, just do something like that. And then you've got all the faces converted still from the convert entity off the face, but only that front face gets extruded. And then we could go back and do our cut extrude again, you know, manipulate the topology of that face. And then we can roll forward and boom, life is good. So that's a kind of a cool one to know about. Convert entities. Try to remember when you're using convert entities, if possible, convert the entire face rather than individual edges. All right, let's talk a little bit later in the presentation. We talked about the use of convert entities, and a little bit later we're going to talk about the use of intersection curve. That's up here in the same pull down menu as convert entities. So let's talk about intersection curve. That's a little joke that really works well when you're live. A little bit tougher to gauge the room when you're presenting to a screen. Intersection curve is a really cool function in SolidWorks. It lets you grab the perimeter of a face based on the location of a sketch plane, essentially. That's how it works in 2D. It works a little different in 3D. We're not gonna talk about 3D today, but we are gonna talk about 2D. And so there's a couple of spots that I'm gonna show you that we can use this, but first let's just review what I mean by that. Let's say we've got a set of geometry that looks like this, and we need to create a gasket that exists at a very specific location on this model. Well, what we could do is we could go to the top plane, hold control, drag. So this is one of the plane creation shortcuts. I don't talk about this in this presentation too much, but it's good to know. I hold the control key down here, control. So I hold control and then I put my mouse over the border of the plane so it becomes a 4-way arrow. And then I'm gonna drag that plane down like so. And I'm gonna drag it down to here. Almost down to the bottom of the part. And I'm gonna hit the green check mark. And then I'm gonna select that plane, begin a sketch, orient my view. And I'm gonna pick this face and this face and this face. And I'm gonna tell SolidWorks to create what's called an intersection curve. So an intersection curve is the location that this face is passing through the sketch plane that I'm currently working on. Now, intersection curve is very cool because you could use that for something like a sweep path. So I could take that sketch that I just created and I could create a sweep path running around it for, say, a 1 millimeter diameter circle. And then I could cut a groove into that part. Oh, I did it as a solid sweep. Thought I did it as a cut. I could do it as a cut sweep and I could cut a groove into that part to fit a gasket. So that's a great spot to learn how to use intersection curve. Let's take a look at it on this model here. I'm going to say that I want to place an additional ring, like a little measuring ring at a certain height here. Well, I could take a new plane and move this plane down, hit the green check mark, select this plane, begin a sketch, pick this surface here on the inside, go intersection curve, exit that sketch, and then I could go to a solid sweep and make a solid sweep using a circular profile using that sketch that I just created as a sweep path. And now I've given myself a little additional ring there so that I know, that's where 1 cup of sugar needs to go or whatever it is that I'm measuring here. Yeah, intersection curve is a really, really cool tool. And now that we've covered the basics of how it works, let me show you guys a couple of examples that you could use this in the real world. And the first is to take an imported model and to turn that imported model into a standalone, fully defined model. So in this case, you can see here that I'm looking at this flange that came in as an imported model. I've got 3D interconnect turned on. It's an imported model of this flange. Well, what I could do is I could go front plane, begin a sketch, orient my view, and then I could take all these faces here. In fact, I could do this with a right mouse button, select tangency, this face and this face, and then I could do an intersection curve. So I could go sketch, intersection curve. And with intersection curve, I've generated this geometry. Now I'm gonna window select all of this, and I'm going to do a line command here and create a line that's coming up like so. And then I'm going to window select all that geometry and do a Control C. Now I'm gonna begin a new part. I'll make a part here in inches. And I'm going to front plane, begin a sketch, orient my view. I'm gonna click in the background and I'm gonna Control V for paste. This now gives me a sketch that I can work with and turn this into my own feature with my own feature dimensions. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment. But before I do, I'm going to show you the super ultra ultimate shortcut that I learned last year. And that is window all this geometry, hold Control, and drag this geometry from a point. Now I know what you might be thinking. Wait, hold Control, isn't that going to make a copy? And the answer is yes, it's going to make a copy. But there's something really cool that you can do that makes this a super ultra power move. Window select all this geometry, hold Control, drag this point, and then let go of Control. And now you're able to take this geometry and quickly reassign it to some new geometry. Now, you might be thinking, why are you calling that the super ultra power move? That doesn't seem that powerful. Let me show you something here. Let me show you a pretty cool example of how this can work. I'm going to examine this geometry here, this boss extrude. And you can see that this boss extrude is currently defined with a coincident relationship down here and a coincident relationship down here. And what I can do is I can window select this geometry, hold control, drag, let go of control, and drop up here. And those relationships that I don't want anymore will be eliminated. So the coincident that was down below here was eliminated. The coincident that was down below here was eliminated. And the new relationship was created up top. But the driving dimension still worked. This is crazy. This is crazy that you can do this in SolidWorks. Another thing that you could do that's kind of a similar scenario is you could create a tombstone shape like so. And you could start out with this tombstone shape with these coincident relationships and then realize actually this needs to be on that upper edge. Hold control, drag this point, let go of control, drop here, and SolidWorks will break those lower relationships and give you the new relationships up top. This is so cool that you can do this in SolidWorks. You could, from the tree here, you could hold control and drag this feature either into the current sketch or into a new sketch. Hold on, let me get rid of that extra tombstone. So in the tree here, you could hold control, drag this tombstone to the same model or to a different model. And then you could quickly get into that sketch. Now, if I just try to drag this geometry, things are going to go haywire. You know, I'm sure we've all been in that spot before. Like, no, I just want to put this on here, but I want it to stay the same shape. Well, what you could do is window, hold control, drag, let go of control, drop, and it retains the same shape. Or you could even window, hold control, drag this point, drag it onto this corner point here, let go of control, drop, and now it picks up that corner relationship, and you just need to add that one final dimension. So this is absolutely mind-blowing. I see Frank chiming into the chat for the first time. Finally got him. He was like, all right, Toby, you got a comment from me for that one. That is the super ultra power move for the presentation, and it is indeed epic. Window select this geometry. So I started out here in this imported part. I basically traced everything that was going at the intersection of that plane, brought it into this part here. Now I'm going to hold control, drag, let go of control, drop. That gives me a sketch, but this sketch is not fully defined. Obviously, it's all blue, and even the sketch relationships are not defined. Well, we can right mouse button in the background and we can choose fully defined sketch. And when we choose fully defined sketch, we can see here that this fully defined sketch lets us define dimensions and relations. So if we wanted to, we could say, I don't want to add any dimensions, but I do want to add relations. And this is pretty powerful too, because this lets us go through and assign tangent and horizontal and vertical. And that's a good way to make sure that at least your sketch behaves the way that you want it to. So last time that tangent arc just kind of went crazy. This time you can see that that horizontal line is staying horizontal, and you can see that that vertical line is staying vertical. So this is pretty cool to know about as well. But in our case, we can actually add the dimensions as well. So I'm going to hold control, begin dragging, let go. What's up, Striker? Thank you for joining us. Welcome, welcome. So I'm going to drag this into place here, let it go. I'm going to right mouse button, fully define sketch. I'm going to say, give me my dimensions and my sketch relations. I'm going to say this is going to be using center line dimensions because I got a center line here. The remaining dimensions are going to be coming from this point. Add my dimensions, add my relations, hit the green check mark. Boom. Nice, fully defined sketch. Even though it started out as an imported model with no dimensions, I was able to quickly turn it into a fully defined sketch. So I started here with this imported model that doesn't have any dimensions, it doesn't have anything that I can really work with. I was able to extract the features that I needed using intersection curve and then bring them into their own completely undefined sketch, add fully defined sketch to fully define them, and then turn that into its own standalone feature. And this is something that I actually do a lot. I get imported models. I want to just grab some features from those models and make them my own and make them actually work so I can define their geometry. This is how you do it. And that way you can get in here, you can say, this is actually supposed to be 8.5. This is actually supposed to be 4 for the max height, and rebuild. And there we go. We got our own part. So I love that one. I'm glad that I got to show you the fully defined sketch function from the right mouse button in the background. Display delete relations, fully defined sketch. I did write a song about this very topic. So if you haven't had a chance to see that song yet, to share that song, be sure to check that out. What keyboard do you use, Toby? I'm in the market for a new one. I don't know what I'm using. We actually talked about this at the beginning of the presentation. Somebody called me out. Omar called me out. I think it's a G something, something, something. If you scroll up to the top of the chat, you'll be able to see what it was. G915 or something. Some kind of cool Logitech mechanical gaming keyboard that lights up and changes colors. Rich K says that is next level. I agree, Rich. I hope that you will find a good place to use that, because that is one that I have gotten a ton of value out of. That is the super ultra mega bonus tip. You hold control to begin dragging, you let go of control, and then you drop that geometry onto a point. Definitely gives you the epic results that you're looking for. Lots of epic moves in that section. Okay, and I think this is pretty much the last thing I'm going to show you guys today. I don't think I have much more beyond this, but this is a pretty cool one too. Again, using intersection curve. So the idea here is I want to compare a change to an existing design. I'm doing a design review with a customer, and the customer says, what would happen if we changed that dimension? So I change the dimension, and then they say, well, what does that look like compared to what it originally was? And then I say, oh, that's kind of hard to show because I already changed it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go front plane, begin a sketch. So now I got the front plane here, and then I'm going to go intersection curve. And the faces that I'm going to choose are going to be basically these outside faces. So the handle here and these faces here. All right, hit the green check mark. And that gives us a nice view of what this part looks like if we're looking at it from the outside. Now, what I want to do is I want to make changes to this loft here where the 77 and the 99 change slightly so that the customer and I can look at this thing and say, oh, what would it look like if it was, you know, if the geometry looked a little different. And so now I've got this nice sketch here that I can compare it to, but there's two things I need to do with this sketch. The first thing is I'm going to go over to the tree and I'm going to right mouse button in the tree and I'm going to choose sketch color. And when I choose sketch color, I can just change the color of that sketch, make it something that pops a little bit, make it something that's a little easier to see when I'm looking at this thing from a front view. So I just right mouse button in the tree, sketch color, and then once I go to sketch color, I can change this to something that pops out a little bit more. It's a little easier for us to see when we're doing our little design review. But the second problem here is that if I make changes to that original geometry, you know, those changes are going to cause these lines to update because these lines are downstream related because of intersection curve. It's a dynamic relationship like convert entities. So what I could do here is I can use this option in the SolidWorks sketch toolbar, display delete relations, and I can say I want to delete everything. I want to delete all those sketch relationships. And I can hit the green check mark, and now this sketch has no sketch relationships, and the only thing that it is dependent on is the front plane. So that means I could drag it up to the very top here, and I could say design on Feb 28. So now I've got like a little snapshot of what this thing looked like back on February 28th. And then if I am working with the customer, we're doing a design review, and we say, let's change this to 74, and let's change this to 98, and let's see how that looks. And so we could do a Control Q, and then we could go to our front view, and we can see, oh yeah, that's nice. The angle's a little bit greater. It pulls in down at the bottom a little more. I like that. Let's go with that design. Let's 3D print that and see how that feels. So it's just a cool little trick that I like to use. I'll do an intersection curve, then I'll edit that sketch, and I'll display delete relations, and then I'll just change the sketch color and drag that up as far as I can so that I can kind of snapshot that portion of the design and you know, use it to help me understand what's going on with future permutations of the designs. Guys, I think we're winding down. Intersection curve part 2. We got some bonus tips in there. We talked about how you have to delete the sketch relationships in order to move it to the top of the tree. We talked about changing the sketch colors. This is something that I do a lot. I change the sketch colors to make sure that I can tell which one is my profile, which one is my path, which one is my guide curve. So cool stuff in there. Intersection curve. And I think we'll save derived sketch for... Now, you know what? You guys have been hanging with me this whole time. Let's just go for it here. Let's just go. We don't have to spend too much time talking about derived sketch. We can get the point across. The idea of derived sketch is when I made a copy of this tombstone from here over to here, the copy was an independent copy. So if I change this height here from 20 millimeters to 25 millimeters and rebuild, the original changes, but the copy does not change. If I select the sketch of that boss, that tombstone boss, and I hold control and I select a planar face or another sketch plane, I then unlock the functionality of Insert Derived Sketch. This is Derived Sketch here in the pull-down menu. If I click in the background so nothing is selected, Insert Derived Sketch is not available. It's grayed out. So I'm going to pre-select that sketch. I'm going to pre-select this planar face, and I'm going to use the command Insert Derived Sketch. This is a very special type of sketch. You can see that with this sketch, there is no option for Smart Dimension or Rectangle or sketch there is actually for sketch relationship, but there is no option for Smart Dimension or Rectangle or Line or anything like that. The only thing that I'm really able to do is create relationships for this new sketch on this model. And after that, I can't do anything else. Then what I can do is I can extrude that geometry. Let's say I extrude that out to 8 millimeters. And then I can go back to the original sketch and I can make a change to the original sketch. Make this 15. And what we see is the derived sketch automatically takes on that change. And this is where derived sketch is different from, it's different from convert entities, because convert entities would give you something similar, but the two sketches have to be aligned with one another. And it's different from just copy and paste, because the copy and paste, they're not related at all. Here you can see that I could change this tab down here, rebuild, and the derived sketch updates as well. Anything I do to the original will update the derived sketch. If I go into the original and I create additional geometry, that additional geometry will magically appear in the derived sketch. Pretty cool how derived sketch works. And so a great application for this would be when you're creating some type of a sweep or a loft that goes around a curve but needs to be symmetric around that curve. Well, what we could do is we could create our profile 1, which looks like this, and we could create our profile 2, which looks like this, and then we could select our profile 3 sketch plane, hold Control and select profile 2, and insert derived sketch, and then we can lock that into position, and we can pick our profile 1, hold Control, and pick maybe this surface here, insert derived sketch, and lock that into place as well. I know I'm not really locking this into place. Actually, it's kind of bothering me. So pick this point, hold Control, pick this curve, pierce. Now all it can do is rotate. Pick that point, hold Control, pick this curve, pierce. Exit that sketch. Let's do the same thing here. This is I got to do stuff the right way, guys. I'm sorry. I just have to do it. Just how I'm wired. I have to do things the right way. Pick this guy, hold Control, pick here, pierce. There we go. That's correct now. And now I'm ready to perform a loft command. You'll notice my use of sketch colors here again. Green for guide curve outer, magenta for guide curve inner. Let's go solid loft. And we're going to go loft profile 1, profile 2, profile 3, profile 4, guide curve inner, guide curve outer. Hit the green check mark. That gives us a beautiful loft. Look at that thing. That looks amazing. We'll do a shell here. We'll make this a 2 millimeter shell. Get rid of these faces. All right. Now the customer comes and says, hey, I need to make a change. I need these outer ones to be a little taller. Well, what's cool is I could just change this one profile sketch and they're both going to update because of the derived sketch down on this end. So I could double click here, bring up those dimensions. Maybe the customer's looking over my shoulder and say, okay, what do you want this to be, Mr. Customer? 75? No problem. Let me update that for you. And the customer says, whoa, it updated at both ends? That's awesome. I'm going to start paying you more. Yeah, you want it to be a little taller? Oh, too tall? You want it to be a little shorter? I know how that feels to be too tall. Make that a little shorter. There we go. Derived sketch. Really, really cool bit of functionality in SolidWorks. Wasn't sure if we were going to have time for it today, but I'm glad that we did because there's some cool spots where you can use that. That's going to bring us to the end of our section on sketching. In that section, we covered the power trim command. We covered how to backtrack on a trim, how to use trim to extend, how to trim and leave construction geometry behind, how to convert entities and pick the entire face because the convert entities command will be stronger when you pick the entire face, how to use the intersection curve, how to delete dimensions and relations, how to fully define your sketch using the fully defined sketch tool, how to adjust your sketch colors, and finally, how to reorder the sketch so it's at the top of the tree. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Avery's going nuts. Thanks, Aimless. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. that was a pretty fun presentation. I know it was a little bit of a marathon, but I'm glad that we got to do this together. We covered those 4 different sections of the presentation, some fundamentals in section 1 and 2, some more advanced kind of corner cases in sections 3 and 4. Did you guys, let's see here, did you learn 3 new time-saving tips? If you did, put a 1 in the chat, or let me know what one of them was. You know, type in the chat, let me know what your favorite thing was that you learned today. Did you get some of your questions answered? I hope that you did. Did you have some fun along the way? I did. I always have fun doing this kind of stuff, so definitely had fun along the way. Don't forget about the value for value proposition. You know, if you want to support this channel, this effort, you can like, you can subscribe, you can comment. Comment really helps with the algorithm. So even if you're watching live, if you see this video goes into a replay, you can go back in, you can click on it and just add a comment like, great job, Toby, something like that. That really helps with the algorithm. And be sure to share this on other platforms. If you feel like you're going to save some time with these tips and tricks, feel free to figure out what that time is worth and send that value back to me. A couple of different ways you can do this. My website, right on the Support TooTallToby link, right here in the super chat. And also if you're watching the recording, the super thanks. It really means a lot to me. Of course, you can also buy a t-shirt. The t-shirts are the softest t-shirts in the CAD game. I want to say thank you to all of you in the chat. You guys are amazing. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to do this together. The Digital 3D CAD Users Group is officially coming to a close, but I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Glad that you are here, Sai Sidroy. And I want to also just say thank you again to SolidBox. If you guys are ever in the need for computer hardware, be sure to take care of the company that takes care of you, that takes care of the user groups, that has won the SolidWorks User Group Sponsor of the Year 2 different years. That's because the crew from SolidBox is out there trying to get the user groups going again, trying to support the user groups. So if you want to support them back and your company needs new hardware, take a look, mysolidbox.com. They are a great partner. Partner for life. Most of the customers that work with SolidBox become partners for life. So a great company that really knows how to take care of their customers and how to take care of the community, you know, which they show all the time. Psycho Dre. Okay, nice. Wow, nice job. Big B Form AZ. Nice job. Guys, should we do the next one March 28th? I don't know. No commitment here, but I think we could do the next one March 28th. We could maybe do sheet metal or sweeping or surfaces. You guys can let me know in the comments if you're watching the recording. Let me know in the comments if you're watching live. Let me know in the chat what you think you might want to see. And I think that brings us to the end. The end? Question mark. This was a lot of fun. I want to say thank you guys so much. The chat really makes this the experience that it is. You guys all interacting with one another really makes it the experience that it is. So thank you guys so much. I will stick around. I will try to answer any questions that I see coming in. This has indeed been a marathon. So I'm feeling pretty good. Feeling like we got all of our goals accomplished. Let me know what you guys think. As always, appreciate all the feedback. Appreciate all the suggestions. And time to squeeze in a monthly challenge. Yeah, guys, if you haven't done it yet, it is the last day of the month. It's your last chance. Jed, if you're still out there, it's your last chance to get in there and submit the modeling challenge at TooTallToby.com. If you go to TooTallToby.com/leaderboard, there's a modeling challenge on there. Let me just type in that /leaderboard. And if you check that out, you can see how long it takes you to create 3 models. There's a clock built into the website. It automatically puts you on the leaderboard. You just have to record your video and post it somewhere and then leave me a comment so I know where the video is and I'll review it. But you can see how fast you can create 3 different models. And even if you don't want to participate, you could watch some of these speed wizards that are out there going through and creating these models. I think Jed did his now in like just over 5 minutes. So creating 3 models in just 5 minutes is pretty darn impressive. So be sure to check that out. Be sure to give it a try or just watch the other people doing it. Thank you very much, James Stryker, saying, miss seeing you at the World this year. Yeah, I really wish I could have gone, James. Believe me, it breaks my heart a little bit, but it is what it is. And, you know, we'll see what the future holds for sure. And guys, I think that's a perfect place to end. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the kind words. I will see everybody in the next one, which I think we're going to do Model Monday Live next week as well. So I hope that I will see you at Model Monday Live next week, Monday night, 7 o'clock p.m. And I'll see everybody in the next in the next one, whatever it is. Bye, everybody.